How did a blind, helpless lawyer who started out like this
As I was telling your associate, this office was barely touched by the incident.
turn into the famous hero who brought down New York's greatest villain? Well, that's how things go in today's show.
That this city rejected you. It beat you. I beat you.
Daredevil. You see, in the world of Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen in New York is a neighborhood rotting from the inside. A crime lord named Wilson Fisk runs the whole city from the shadows, and almost nobody knows his name. The city is filled with corrupt officials, criminal empires, ancient ninja cults, and a man in a mask trying to hold all of it back with nothing but his fists and his faith. Oh, and a bit of superpowers. That man is Matt Murdock, a lawyer by day and vigilante by night. So, let's get right into it. The first episode begins in 1994. A kid runs out into the street and shoves an old man out of the way of a speeding truck. He saves the man's life, but in the process, a barrel of hazardous chemicals falls off the truck and spills in his eyes. He yells in pain as his dad sits next to him. The kid's eyesight slowly begins to disappear and he turns completely blind.
I can't see!
He yells that he can't see and his father hugs him tightly. That kid is Matt Murdock, and that accident didn't just take his sight. It supercharged everything else. His hearing, his smell, touch, taste, everything. All amped up to levels no human should ever have. All these powers in exchange for his sight. Back to the present in Hell's Kitchen, New York. 2 years after the Battle of New York between the Avengers and Loki, the city was left in shambles, and crime was at an all-time high. A construction company known as Union Allied has been using drugs, gangs, and dirty money to devalue neighborhoods so they can swoop in and rebuild them on their terms. The city is clearly rotting from the inside, and the law isn't keeping up. Matt is now grown. We see him in a confessional booth, and he asks for forgiveness for what he's about to do.
I'm asking forgiveness for what I'm about to do.
Moments later, we see him save the day. Well, night. At the port of New York against a bunch of human traffickers who were smuggling young ladies. He swoops in and gives them a good old butt-kicking, and it's the first time we see him in action in the series. And boy oh boy, he does a good job. Matt is woken up by his friend Foggy Nelson, a warm, excited, and a little loud fella who's Matt's best friend and law school buddy. The two have just opened their own firm, Nelson and Murdock, out of a dingy office in Hell's Kitchen, New York. No clients, no furniture, just ambition and willingness to help people who need it. Foggy has been warming up to his contact at the NYPD, a cop named Brett Mahoney, trying to drum up cases. Matt and Foggy initially meet up and are given a tour of their future office. Empty is an understatement. But hey, you gotta start from somewhere, right? Their first case walks in almost immediately, thanks to Brett, who tipped Foggy off and gave him details of a case that may interest them. The case is about a woman named Karen Page who woke up next to the dead body of her coworker, Daniel Fisher, holding a bloody knife.
Drop the knife. No, drop it.
I didn't do this! I didn't do this!
She gets arrested on the spot and taken into custody. Matt and Foggy go to her and they introduce themselves. Karen is confused since it's weird how the lawyers just pop up out of nowhere. She asks them how long they've been practicing law.
It's 12:22 a.m.
About 7 hours.
Yep, 7 hours of experience. Fantastic. They begin to interrogate her. Matt uses his super hearing and monitors Karen's heartbeat throughout the interrogation. He believes she didn't do it, and she's telling the truth, so they decide to take the case. Behind the scenes, a man named James Wesley meets up with a guy, Mr. Farnham, in the park, who owes him some money. He shows him live footage of his daughter in college, and Farnham is scared for his loved one's safety. Farnham promises to pay the full amount, but James says it's an insignificant sum. But his position and power is something he can work with. He wants him to do something for them. Later that night, someone tries to kill Karen in her jail cell. Turns out it's Mr. Farnham, and he's a cop. He strangles her while apologizing. Luckily, Karen manages to save herself and screams for help. Matt and Foggy head back to the detention center and use the incident as leverage to get Karen released. She gets released and tells Matt and Foggy everything. Turns out she found financial records proving Union Allied has been stealing from its own workers' pension fund. She told her boss, and he laughed it off. She told Fisher, and soon after, she was drugged. And the next morning, she woke up with a knife next to Fisher's dead body. She was being framed for the murder. Meanwhile, James Wesley meets up with a group of Union Allied criminal partners. They are concerned about the trafficking operation that Matt disrupted the night before. James assures them that the vigilante will be dealt with. Matt figures out that Karen still has a copy of the financial records. Karen slips out, grabs it from her apartment, and almost gets killed for it. Lucky for her, Matt arrives just in time. He shows up in a black mask and no armor. He beats the hell out of the hitman. I'm talking serious ass-whooping, too. He takes the flash drive and dumps it along with the unconscious attacker right at the New York Bulletin newspaper office. The story breaks publicly, Union Allied is exposed, and Karen is cleared. Wesley reports to his unseen employer. The employer is not even rattled. He lets Karen go since the file is already out, but he is now curious about Nelson and Murdock. The episode closes with Matt alone at his father's old gym, working out using a punching bag. Out on the streets, the Russian mafia kidnaps a little boy right in front of his father. Matt hears the boy's screams and puts on his mask. The next episode starts with Matt waking up in a dumpster. Beaten half to death by the Russian mafia, he went in alone to save the kidnapped boy and got himself a proper beating. A neighbor named Santino finds him and brings him to the attention of Claire Temple, a nurse who lives nearby. Together they bring him up to her apartment. She checks his injuries, and just as she's trying to call 911, Matt stops her and claims that they will kill everyone in the hospital to get to him. He stands up to leave, but before he even reaches the door, he loses consciousness and falls. Meanwhile, Foggy and Karen are at the office late. Karen doesn't even want to go home yet, so she's helping around the office, which is still empty, by the way. They decide to go to a bar and have some fun. Karen asks Foggy to ask whether Matt is interested. Speaking of the devil, Matt wakes up on Claire's sofa. She checks his injuries and discovers he has a collapsed lung and a stab wound. She insists on taking him to the hospital, but Matt totally refuses. Claire stitches him up and stops the bleeding. Matt also refuses to tell Claire his name, so Claire names him Mike, which is the name of her ex, who was also a secretive fella. Matt begins to have flashbacks of the childhood accident that made him blind. Claire helps him breathe after his lungs begin collapsing. He finally opens up and tells her about the boy who was kidnapped by the Russians. As they're talking, Matt senses someone coming up to the apartment. He smells his cologne, and Claire is surprised at how he can smell someone 3 floors below. The man reaches the door and knocks, saying he's with the NYPD. Matt hides, and Claire opens the door. He asks her about any unusual activity, and Claire says she hasn't heard anything. The man leaves, and Matt follows him since he knows he's in the Russian mafia. He knocks him out using a fire extinguisher. Foggy and Karen are enjoying their night. Foggy takes her to his favorite local bar where he introduces her to a bunch of people. They enjoy themselves as they drink the night away. He's trying to make her feel less alone. So sweet. Meanwhile, Matt takes the fake cop on the roof and begins interrogating him about the location of the boy. The guy pretends to be a hard nut to crack, claiming someone will replace him when he dies. He mocks Matt to go ahead and kill him. Claire tells Matt where to insert maximum pain on the guy, and moments later he folds and tells him the boy is at the Troika restaurant. Matt tells Claire to move to another place far away since she has interacted with him, meaning her life is now in danger. Claire asks him if he enjoys hurting people. He does not respond and simply walks away. Later, Matt walks into that restaurant hallway, badly hurt. That doesn't stop him at all. Out of every single person in that room, it's a long and brutal fight. He finally reaches where the boy is being locked up and rescues him. Also, this episode gives us flashbacks of Matt's dad, Jack Murdock, during his boxing practices. We see him entering the ring and knocking out a badass boxer named Carl Creel. Young Matt is watching the match from home. Unfortunately, Jack was killed the same night by the Irish mob he had crossed. Matt finds his father's body in a dark alley. This is one hell of a character development for our young Matt. The next episode begins with a man named John Healy, who walks into a bowling alley and kills a mob figure named Prohaska by smashing his face with a bowling ball. Afterwards, he calmly waits for the police to arrive and surrenders himself. Pretty odd. He then asks for a lawyer. This is not panic, this is a plan, and we both know the lawyers who will show up to help. Back at Nelson and Murdock's office, our favorite lawyers are discussing whether they should get a pet dog. Then they hear a knock on their door. Finally, another client has arrived. Karen goes ahead to open the door, and here comes James Wesley. He is their new client, and he wants them to represent Healy. He does not mention his name, though. He simply gives them 38 minutes to go to the 15th precinct to meet Healy. But Matt is kinda suspicious. No names mentioned and a pretty huge compensation that excites Foggy. The compensation literally makes Foggy about the suspicions. Bro just wants the zeros in their bank balances. Also, the guy knows about Karen's situation, something which was not published or announced anywhere. Red flags all over, but they agree to take the meeting. Matt secretly follows James and senses him getting into the car and talking to his employer. Foggy arrives at the precinct and meets with John Healy. He asks him questions, and the way that he's answering them are pretty weird.
They threatened you how? Verbally, physically?
Which sounds better?
Yeah, right. You do regret smashing someone's head with a bowling ball. Foggy decides to call it quits, and moments later, Matt walks in and decides that they should take the case nonetheless. We get introduced to Ben Urich, a journalist at the New York Bulletin who has been sniffing around the organized criminal activities in Hell's Kitchen. He meets up with his editor, who shuts down the entire story, claiming there's not enough proof and it's also bad for their sales. Urich also has a sick wife whose insurance coverage is running out. He's fighting that battle too, unraveling the city's crimes and covering health costs for his wife. Bro has a lot on his plate. As Matt and Foggy are going back and forth about the case, Karen is being approached by Kirshner and Brown, lawyer. Turns out Union Allied, the company Karen had helped expose, is offering her a non-disclosure agreement and settlement. Basically, just sign it, stay quiet, and they will not pursue any legal action against her. Karen contemplates whether or not to sign it. At John Healy's trial, Matt is watching the jury closely. Well, not with his eyes, but with his other senses, as Foggy gives the opening statement. One of the jurors' heartbeats spikes when Wesley enters the courthouse. She is clearly being blackmailed. Matt tracks her down as the masked vigilante and finds the man running the blackmail operation. As usual, he gives him a thorough ass-whooping until he agrees to get her off the jury. The man swears he doesn't know who hired him, and that he will be killed for failing. Tough luck, man. Even without blackmail, the jury deadlocks. The prosecution cannot move forward. Matt's instincts and a bit of smartness make Healy walk free. Exactly as planned. Karen meets up with Urich to give him more insights into the Allied Union story. This is despite Mrs. Fisher, Daniel Fisher's wife, telling her to let it go. During the night, Matt ambushes Healy on the street, and after an intense fight, forces him to give a name. Shockingly enough, he gives out a name.
Wilson Fisk!
We finally have a name for the mysterious employer everyone has been scared to mention. Wilson Fisk. The man, the myth, the legend. Matt tells Healy to get into the car and drive off, but Healy kills himself by ramming his head into a spike. He would rather die than be alive when Fisk finds out he gave out his name. Hot damn! Meanwhile, across town at an art gallery, a large, awkward man stares into a white painting called Rabbit in a Snowstorm. He is approached by a pretty art curator, Vanessa, who describes the painting to him. The man is Wilson Fisk himself. He's asked how the painting makes him feel, and he responds,
It makes me feel alone.
Vanessa and Fisk have unexpectedly formed a bond over the painting. His lonely days may soon be over. Episode 4 starts by taking us back 8 years to a Russian prison in Siberia. Two prisoners, Anatoly and Vladimir Ranskahov, are rotting in a cell. Their cellmates are dying around them. Anatoly keeps saying it can't get worse than this. Vladimir takes the bones of their dead cellmate and makes a shiv out of them. He intends to escape that night, and when they do, they're not going back to Moscow. They're going to America to live like kings. We then come back to the present, where our kings are losing ground. Matt has been hitting the drug operations night after night, wearing them down. Anatoly barely escapes one of his ambushes. Later on, Matt visits Claire to get patched up after a night of ass-whooping and bone-breaking. He gives her a burner phone and tells her that the real target is Wilson Fisk. The Russians are just the pathway to the man himself. Anatoly meets up with Wesley, and he's looking pretty rough after his encounter with Matt.
Oof, those look like they hurt. I've heard worse.
Anatoly wants Fisk's help in dealing with the masked vigilante. Wesley tells him to sort out the vigilante issue because it's affecting their business. At a cafe in the city, Karen and Urich are sharing notes. Uric reveals to her that both of the Union-allied hitmen are dead, apparent suicides, and she is lucky to be alive. He tells her to stop whatever she's getting herself into, but Karen is one stubborn lady. She will not back down despite Uric's warning. Meanwhile, Fisk is on his romantic arc as he heads back to the art gallery in search of Vanessa. He meets her and asks her to come to dinner. She gladly accepts. Back at Claire's apartment, she is restless and she suspects someone's following her. That's creepy. Foggy and Matt are just leaving the office when Matt gets a call from his burner phone. He picks up and it's Claire screaming for help. He dashes into the apartment and climbs up only to find Claire already gone. He tries tracking her outside and senses Russian men bundling her into a car boot. He tries going after them, but he ends up losing them. Poor Matt. Fisk takes Vanessa on a dinner date. He's kinda awkward and stuff, but in a way that intrigues Vanessa. They continue enjoying their date as they get to know each other better. Meanwhile, Claire is taken to the Russians' hideout, and they start to interrogate her about Matt. She refuses to give them a name, and soon after, the lights suddenly go out. She taunts them with laughter.
You want to know his name? Ask him yourself.
Matt swoops in and beats the crap out of them. In the aftermath of Matt's rescue, the Russians are getting frustrated. And Natalie makes a bold move. Without telling Vladimir, he drives to the restaurant where Fisk is having dinner with Vanessa, and announces that they accept Fisk's offer. Fisk walks Vanessa out, apologizes to her, and puts Natalie in a car with Wesley. Meanwhile, Matt is patching up Claire after the ordeal. How the tables have turned. Claire talks about how she's scared while Matt comforts her. Fisk escorts Vanessa back to her home, and she's already uncomfortable after what she saw at the restaurant. Fisk asks her how she feels about him, and Vanessa responds that she doesn't know. Fisk walks away, visibly disappointed. He walks to the car where Natalie was and yanks him outside. He beats him thoroughly, saying how he embarrassed him in front of Vanessa, and he then places him on the car door and slams the door repeatedly on his neck, cutting it off. Bloody hell! Wesley patiently watches from the comfort of his seat. Fisk tells him to send the head to Natalie's brother, Vladimir. Wesley says it'll start a war, and Fisk says it's exactly what he wants. It's about to go down. The episode begins with Claire spending the night at Matt's apartment. She asks Matt to explain what he actually sees since he's blind. He goes on to describe it.
Micro changes in air density, vibrations, blankets of temperature variations.
Fragments of sound, pressure, heat, and air movement. All of these fragments together form something like an impressionistic painting of the world around him. She asks him what that looks like.
A world on fire.
Matt leans in for a kiss. Elsewhere, Vladimir meets up with Wesley, and just as they're talking, Natalie's headless body is brought in. Vladimir looks in shock and then spots Matt's mask on Natalie's body. Wesley and Fisk's plan for an all-out war is slowly taking shape. Vladimir demands the head of the masked man. Fisk meets up with his criminal partners, Madame Gao, Owsley, and Yoshioka. He calmly tells them that the Russians are no longer part of the organization after he removed Natalie's head with his car door. He says that it was a personal matter and he promises that everything will continue as usual, with the profits being split equally among them. None of them is happy, but they fall in line. Meanwhile, Matt follows two Russians and a Chinese guy and ambushes them. After a thorough beating as usual, he asks one of them where Vladimir is. Bro is so scared Matt'll cut his head off and tells him everyone knows he's the one who chopped Natalie's head off. Matt runs off just as the police arrive. Back in the office, a new client enters and she is in need of Matt and Foggy's help. Elena Cardenas, an elderly tenant, is being harassed out of her apartment by a slumlord called Armand Tully, who is working for a shell company. He wants Elena out so he can take over the building. They offer to help her, and so Foggy and Karen decide to go to Landman and Zach, Foggy's old firm, to negotiate. Matt then heads to the police precinct and overhears something terrible. Corrupt cops, Detectives Blake and Hoffman, are interrogating a Russian guy they caught with heroin. The man mentions the name Fisk and offers to tell him everything he knows in exchange for a deal. Blake takes out a gun and shoots him dead right there, mentioning Fisk's name as a death sentence. Fisk is he who must not be named in this universe. Matt hears everything, but he cannot stop it. Foggy and Karen arrive at Landman and Zach, where they are met by Foggy's gorgeous ex, Marcy Stahl. She tells them Cardenas should accept the buyout or live in squalor. Foggy pushes back and tells her that they'll meet her in court. He promises to obliterate her since he knows Landman and Zach are doing something illegal, and going to court will make them lose the case, and their client as well. Karen is even more surprised at the fact that Foggy used to date such a hottie.
Foggy Bear?
We used to date.
You dated that?
Yep, let's step a little faster.
Over to Cardena's apartment and promise her that they'll do their best. Matt, on the other hand, ambushes Blake and forces him to say where Vladimir is. He feels his heartbeat and concludes that Blake is telling the truth. He then knocks him unconscious. Elsewhere, Fisk books an entire restaurant for him and Vanessa. He apologizes to her for the previous inconvenience. Meanwhile, Turk Barrett, a low-level street dealer, tips off Vladimir. He tells him the black SUV used to kill Natalie matches the one owned by a man who fits Fisk's description. Vladimir connects the dots and concludes that Fisk and the masked man are working together. He prepares for an all-out war against Fisk and offers $1 million to whoever can find the guy. Back at the apartment, Foggy and Karen help fix Cardena's water, and she offers them dinner. It turns out to be an accidental date. Over at Fisk's date, he tells Vanessa that sometimes force is necessary to make a city better. Fisk also inquires about the gun she's carrying in her purse. Vanessa says she knew all along the kind of man Fisk was, so it was for her own protection. Fisk reassures her that she will be safe by his side. All across Hell's Kitchen, Fisk bombs go off simultaneously in every Russian mafia location. Dozens are killed and buildings are leveled. One of those buildings is near Cardena's apartment. Foggy and Karen get thrown by the blast, but they survive. Matt rushes to find Vladimir amid the wreckage of one of the explosions that happened right where they were. He jumps above him as he's escaping and gives him a proper whooping. That's payback for him hitting Claire. Before he can get any information out of him, however, police officers arrive and surround them at gunpoint. Our masked vigilante has nowhere to run now. Episode 6 continues from where we left off with Matt surrounded by police at gunpoint. They get closer to him, and just as they're about to cuff him, he fights them off and defeats them. Matt grabs Vladimir and runs away. He takes Vladimir, who's bleeding out, to safety in an abandoned building. He is angry at Matt for killing his brother, but Matt manages to convince him that all of this is Fisk's work, from his brother's death to the explosions. At the hospital, it's all chaotic as people are being brought in numbers from the explosions. Claire is working extra hard to tame the growing number of casualties. Matt rings her and asks her for help in stopping Vladimir's bleeding. Matt finds a flare that cauterizes the wound with it. Vladimir screams in pain as the flame burns his flesh. He soon passes out, and just nearby, a police officer who is passing by hears the screams and enters the building. He finds Vladimir's unconscious body and radios in. Matt neutralizes him and tells him to radio back and report that it's a false alarm.
Second floor, purple mask, wounded civilian!
10-4, post 41.
Yeah, he does not do that. He gives away Matt's location and the police swing into action. Fisk orders his corrupt cops to find Matt and Vladimir and finish the job. The whole thing is now a hostage situation as the Emergency Service Unit, ESU, surrounds the building. Ben Urich shows up and he's told to stay clear. In the building, Matt and Vladimir are stuck inside, and Matt interrogates him about their illegal operations in the city. Vladimir tells him that there's an important name above all who coordinates the illegal activities that happen in the city. The one who handles all the money for all the criminals, including Fisk. Just as he's about to tell them a name, he pretends to be unconscious. He then hits Matt, and they both fall into the ground below and lie there unconscious. Back outside, the press have already arrived and are covering the events in real time. Karen and Foggy are in the hospital, worried sick about Matt. They try to phone him several times, but he's not responding. Matt wakes up from the rubble and finds Vladimir still alive, staring down on him. He gets up, and as they're talking, Vladimir almost dies, but Matt does CPR on him and he wakes up. He's not done with him yet. Matt tries to find a way out when suddenly Fisk's voice comes through the comms of the police officer he knocked out. For the first time, Fisk and Matt are talking.
Who is this?
I think you know.
You've been asking about me.
Fisk is a calm, philosophical guy. He claims that he's trying to save the city just like Matt. He tries to offer Matt a way out. He tells him to kill Vladimir and walk away. Matt obviously refuses because he needs him alive. Fisk torments him by telling him how insignificant he is. He then orders his sniper to open fire on the police officers outside, and everything gets chaotic. The sniper kills some of the officers and wounds Detective Blake. Everyone scampers off for safety as Fisk gives orders to the news channels to show the masked man as the main suspect in all this. Claire calls Matt and tells him about his face being all over the news. He tells her to take care of herself if this is the last time they'll talk. And then he hangs up the phone. The cops are slowly closing in, and they're all about to be surrounded. Matt manages to fight off some of them as others continue approaching them. The ESU is all working for Fisk, so they kill everyone alive in the building. Vladimir takes a gun from one of the officers and tells Matt to run as he stays back. He gives Matt the name of the man who runs Fisk's finances, Leland Owsley. Matt runs off as gunshots ring behind him. Sadly, Vladimir goes down in style. The following episode begins in Tokyo, Japan. A man named Stick is torturing a man named Aito to find out where something called the Black Sky was shipped. He's told it was shipped to New York City. Stick slashes the man who tells him and walks into an elevator. Turns out Stick is blind as well and pretty good with swords. At the office, Matt, Foggy, and Karen are reading the newspaper about the masked man. Foggy tells them what he will do to the masked man if he ever caught him.
What? Punch him in the face with my fisticuffs.
Buddy, the guy is right in front of you. They throw insults at the masked man, even labeling him a terrorist. Bro! Elsewhere, Leland Owsley is having a brief meeting with one of his criminal partners in a parking garage basement, and after they part ways, Leland is ambushed by Matt, who demands to know about Frisk. He beats the crap out of him, but Leland doesn't go down just like that. He fights back with a taser after Matt is distracted by a man behind him. Matt falls and Leland speeds off in his car. The man who is behind Matt walks up to him with a walking stick and mocks him.
You're just gonna lie there all night?
Stick and Matt have officially met. The story shifts to 20 years ago, where we see Matt as a small blind boy sleeping in a bed, overwhelmed by his senses. He's hearing everything, and the sounds hurt him like physical pain. Then Stick, a gruff old man, comes and sits next to him. He tells young Matt not to feel so sorry for himself since he's got a gift no other person has. He takes him to a park and teaches him that what he has is not a disability, but a weapon. Stick offers to train young Matt in martial arts, and for a short while, Matt has a father figure once again. Back to the present, Stick tells Matt he's in New York to save the city from something far worse than death. I wonder what could be worse than death? Matt brings Stick back to his apartment, and Stick mocks the living hell out of Matt.
What a
You have any idea what I pay in rent?
expensive hole.
He mocks everything about him, from his apartment to how he lives. They battle it out just a bit. Stick is trying to see if Matt still has it, and he still does. They laugh it off, and Stick heads to the fridge and grabs a beer.
Never-ending war.
That's a really cool way of showing off your skills. Damn, if I could do that, none of you would tell me anything. He finally tells Matt his reason for coming to New York. Nobu Yoshioka, one of Fisk's criminal partners, is importing something called the Black Sky, a weapon so deadly that Stick's organization has been tracking it across the globe. He asks Matt to help him intercept it at the docks, but Matt makes him one simple promise.
I swear I will not kill anybody.
Yep, he's kinda good at that. Meanwhile, Karen gets some information from Cardenas. And as she's walking out of her apartment, two men begin following her and try to assault her. Luckily, Foggy was following her with a baseball bat. At the docks, Matt and Stick take out Yoshioka's men quietly. The container opens and the Black Sky is revealed. The Black Sky is a child, a small boy chained up and transported like cargo. Stick tries to shoot the boy with an arrow, but Matt jumps and blocks the arrow before it hits the boy. This blows their cover, and Yoshioka ends up fleeing with the kid. Matt comes back to his apartment furious. Stick tells him that the thing wasn't a child. It was a weapon. He goes on and tells Matt that he already killed the boy while he was caught up in fighting Yoshioka's men. This makes Matt furious, and they begin fighting, and for the first time, Matt beats the hell out of Stick. He defeats him and tells him to get the hell out of this city. Paige and Ulrich bring Foggy into the picture and show him their investigation board. There's a king in charge of the whole operation, someone no one has a name for yet. Ulrich adds the masked man as an adversary, not an ally of the king. All they can do now is wait and see which one comes on top. The episode ends with Stick reporting to a huge, well-built man who's probably his boss. The next episode begins with Wilson Fisk waking up alone, and he stares at the rabbit in a Snowstorm painting next to his bed. This scene is uncomfortable since this is a man trying to hold himself through ritual, but it's barely working. He sees an image of his younger self in the mirror as he heads out. Creepy. At the office, Matt, Foggy, and Karen have been quietly investigating a company called Confederate Global Investments and its connection to the slumlord, Tully. Matt is worried that they might do something wrong and get themselves in trouble. Well, look who's speaking. The news about the incident at the docks of the previous night has put Fisk in a very compromised position. He meets up with Yoshioka, who is furious that the Black Sky was killed, and now considers their deal broken. Fisk apologizes to him, and they renegotiate their deal. Wesley is present, and he's mad about how Yoshioka is talking to his boss, but Fisk is rational. He understands the situation. We see a brief flashback of Wilson Fisk's father, Bill Fisk, setting up his campaign posters for a New York election. He is tough on young Wilson Fisk and torments him for not drinking an alcoholic drink. Back to the present, Fisk receives news that Detective Blake has survived the gunshot wound and orders Wesley to take care of him. Uh-oh. Back at the office, Karen, Matt, and Foggy are busy digging their lawyer brains to find clues. Karen finds an article that states Blake woke up from a coma. Matt knows Blake can tell him about Fisk. Fisk meets up with Carl Hoffman, a corrupt officer, and tells him he wants Blake out of the picture, and he will pay a good amount of money to eliminate him. Hoffman has no choice but to agree anyway. If he pisses off the boss, he's next. Carl Hoffman goes to the hospital and enters Blake's room. He takes out the syringe with the lethal injection hidden in a hot dog and injects Blake with it. Matt arrives too late but convinces Blake to tell him everything he knows about Wilson Fisk. Fisk takes Owsley to Mr. Potter, a mentally unstable engineer, to design an armored suit for him after he became a target for the Masked Man. Owsley drops a threat that if Matt finds him, Fisk's finances are at a huge risk, so Owsley is low-key protecting himself and telling Fisk to fix the mess. Smart man. Back at his penthouse, Fisk is having nightmares of his old childhood days, where he recalls how his father forced him to beat someone up for calling him a loser. He wakes up, stares at the painting, and does his morning routine. Wesley tells him that Madame Gao is coming to his penthouse for a visit. She warns Fisk about how sloppy he's become as of late. This sloppiness has led her to find his location very easily, and if Fisk doesn't step up, she'll cut him out and deal with others directly. Fisk, well, does not take this news gladly. We see a flashback of Wilson's father beating his mother with a belt repeatedly after telling Wilson to stare at a blank wall. Yep, that's where his inspiration for viewing white canvases came from. Wilson finally snaps and decides enough is enough. He picks up a hammer and smashes his father's head. Bill falls to the ground and Wilson hits him repeatedly until he's dead. His mother doesn't call the police, instead she helps him dispose of the body safely. Unfortunately, the guilt of that night never left any of them. These flashbacks happen when he's with Vanessa, who comes to visit him. He tells her how he killed his father, but Vanessa doesn't mind very much. She still chooses him. Meanwhile, during the night, Matt tracks down Ulrich and gives him the information he has on Fisk. He tells him about how Owsley handles the finances and about how Fisk rules the city from the shadows using anonymity as his shield. Back to Fisk, he's still having nightmares, but unlike the other times, he now has Vanessa by his side. His usual lonely routine now has lovely company. Ulrich turns on the news and sees Wilson Fisk holding a press conference. He is publicly condemning the Masked Man as a terrorist, pledging to personally invest in Hell's Kitchen, cementing his position as the city's savior. Ulrich deletes his draft as Matt screams in his apartment. The following episode starts on a high note. Matt is fighting with an unknown ninja in red. Moments later, Matt is at the church talking to Father Lantum. He asks him if he believes in the devil and whether he's among us. And Lantum tells him a story from his time in Rwanda. It's about a man named Gaji, a respected leader and someone the entire village loved. He unfortunately butchered his own family and village alongside the militia. It was at that point that Lantum understood the devil is among us. Back at the office, Matt, Karen, and Ulrich are discussing how to corner Fisk after his public appearance. Meanwhile, Fisk meets up with Nobu, who is upset by Fisk's inability to give him the city block he wanted in exchange for his services to Fisk. Nobu promises to help Fisk get rid of the Masked Man, as he is proving to be a real pain in the ass. Back at the office, Cardenas walks in and tells Matt, Karen, and Foggy that Thule doubled the buyout offer. Her neighbors are taking it, and Cardenas will be the only one left, meaning she won't have that much of an option. Matt decides to handle the matter by visiting the art gallery where Vanessa works. As Matt is talking to Vanessa regarding some art, Fisk walks in, and they meet one-on-one for the first time.
Hope I'm not interrupting.
In this brief yet tense exchange, Matt introduces himself as a lawyer, and they have a conversation about the neighborhood. Matt listens to Fisk's heart this whole time, and it's calm, almost seeming as if he really cares about improving the city. This makes him even more dangerous, given what we know about him. Matt goes back to Father Landham. He tells him that the person he considers the devil has someone who loves him and would mourn him. He's asking indirectly whether killing Wilson Fisk would damn his soul. Bro is making a pre-order confession, and then something tragic happens. Cardenas is killed by a drug addict named Junkie Jake, who is paid to do so by Fisk to close the tenant deal once and for all. Damn, that escalated pretty fast. Karen cries as she views her body. So sad. Matt, Foggy, and Karen head to Josie's bar and drink to her memory. Fisk appears on television to express his sorrow over her death. Matt listens to him speak, knowing very well it's all a performance. Matt wears his mask and locates Junkie Jake. He beats the crap out of him and makes him say the address of his employer. He's given an address, Pier 81 Warehouse. Matt heads over there and finds it empty. Fisk isn't there, but Nobu Yoshioka is. He's dressed in full ninja gear. They engage in a brutal fight, and Matt looks like he has found his match. The fight between Matt and Nobu is long and brutal. Two skilled martial arts men going on and on. Yoshioka cuts up Matt so badly before Matt soaks him in a flammable liquid and sets him on fire, killing him. As Nobu is lying there burning, Fisk arrives and thanks him for killing Nobu. Fisk placed them there intentionally because he wanted either of them dead, preferably both though. Fisk confesses that he killed Cardenas to get Matt's attention. This makes Matt even angrier as he lashes out at Fisk, ready to kill him. Turns out Fisk knows how to throw punches after all. He beats Matt up and orders Wesley to finish him off. Matt finds a small chance to escape and takes advantage of it. He breaks through the window and lands in the river below. Foggy heads over to Matt's apartment and hears some weird sounds. Foggy opens the door and finds him on the floor, wounded with blood all over him. Foggy moves closer to him and unmasks him. He's shocked, staring at his best friend's face. He now knows the truth. What an episode. In episode 10, Matt wakes up and finds himself lying on the sofa. His wounds have been stitched up by Claire, who came and left. He's now alone with Foggy, who just wants answers from him. We see a flashback of Matt and Foggy the day they met in college and became roommates. We come back to the present, and Foggy asks Matt if he's really blind. A difficult question for Matt because, well, he doesn't even know how to explain it to him. Foggy asks him the classic question, how many fingers is he holding up?
How many fingers am I holding up?
1.
Matt explains to him the childhood accident that made him have heightened powers. Foggy asks if he's responsible for attacking the cops. Matt tells him that it was Fisk, not him. He's still angry that Matt lied to him about everything. Meanwhile, Madame Gao sits with Fisk and warns him that finding love has changed him in ways that even others are nervous about. He needs to choose between being a public figure and being a crime lord. He cannot be both. In a hospital, we see Ben Urich with his wife, Doris. Her illness is getting worse, and the insurance appeal was not successful. He's totally frustrated and desperate. Back at the apartment, Matt is telling Foggy about everything. He tells him about how he learned how to fight from stick, how he can sense even the most minute details.
I know you haven't showered since yesterday morning, but you rinsed your face in my kitchen sink. I know you had onions in your lunch 2 days ago. I know you're hungry.
Yeah, basically Matt can sense a lot about him. Foggy joins the dots and realizes that everything Matt was doing, he was not speculating. He was 100% certain thanks to his powers. We get a flashback of Matt and Foggy in college, doing what best friends do. We get a glimpse into their early days at their internships. Back to the present, Matt opens up to Foggy about the night he started his vigilante side quests. He was lying in bed one night and could hear everything in Hell's Kitchen. He then heard a little girl whose father was hurting her. He called child services, but the father was smart in hiding all the evidence, so Matt did what he knew best. He followed the guy when he was alone and beat him up so bad that he spent a month in the hospital eating through a straw. Well deserved. Back in the present, Karen and Urich are onto something. They have tracked Fisk's mother, who's living in a retirement home. They ask her questions about her husband and her past life. Elsewhere, Fisk is at a fundraiser shaking hands with senators and power brokers. He has just delivered a captivating speech and is greeting Owsley. Suddenly, guests start collapsing one by one. Vanessa follows after she drank the champagne. Fisk catches her before she falls, watching white foam come from her mouth.
Vanessa!
Back at the apartment, Foggy and Matt are having a heated argument concerning Matt's choices. Foggy is against Matt's decision to beat and kill bad people. We get flashbacks of the two at their favorite bar coming up with the name of their own law firm, Nelson and Murdock. Back to the present, Foggy is in the office. He packs his things, stares at the Nelson and Murdock placard one last time before dumping it in the trash on his way out. The next episode opens with Fisk rushing Vanessa to Metro General Hospital. The doctors immediately begin working on her. Vanessa is taken to the operating room. Fisk tries to enter, but he's not allowed in despite his power and position. The man who controls the city is completely powerless in a hospital hallway. Karen meets up with Matt at his apartment. He's still recovering. He gets updated on what they've been doing regarding Fisk's mother. Matt is worried that they might have tipped Fisk by visiting her. Back at the hospital, Fisk is waiting impatiently outside. Owsley tells Wesley that he thinks Gao had something to do with the poisoning because of how much Fisk has changed. Wesley suspects Yoshioka's remaining men. Neither of them is too sure as to who the real perpetrator is. Back at the apartment, Claire comes to stitch Matt up one more time. She tells him that she's leaving the city for a while because she can't keep getting involved in what Matt does. She also advises Matt that if he keeps acting like this, he's going to end up a martyr, lonely, and bloody. Karen meets up with Ulrich and they update each other on the Fisk case. Ulrich tells Karen about the poison saga that almost killed Fisk, which suggests that people in power wanted Fisk gone ever since he came out publicly. At the hospital, Fisk tells Wesley that when Vanessa recovers, she should be sent far away from the city. Being with him is proving to be a threat to her safety. Elsewhere, Matt goes after Turk Barrett, who leads him to Melvin Potter, the engineer who built Fisk's body armor. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Wesley gets a phone call from Fisk's mother telling him of the two visitors who passed her by. And while that's all happening, Matt and Potter are fighting it out, and Matt beats him up real bad. Potter confesses that he's scared of Fisk because he has someone Potter cares about, a woman named Betsy. Fisk uses her as leverage to make sure Potter is compliant. Oh, poor dude. Matt promises him that if he builds something for him, he will take Fisk down, and Betsy will be safe. Potter agrees to cooperate. Foggy is busy drinking at Josie's when Karen finds him. She tells him that the firm has fallen apart in the middle of the most important case they've ever been involved in. She tells him that Elena Cardena's building has been torn down. Foggy doesn't seem to care about it, though. Karen tells him that whatever happened between him and Matt, they need to get it together. Real talk. Foggy just listens to hear. He can't bring himself to tell her the big secret. At least not yet. Karen gets grabbed while walking home. She wakes up in a dark room across from Wesley. He's not threatening her. He just kinda is offering her a job. He tells Karen to go to Ulrich, Matt, Foggy, and everyone investigating Fisk and tell them to stop. Wesley adds that if she refuses, everyone she cares about will die before she does. Wesley's phone buzzes, and as he picks it up, Karen grabs his gun from the table. She pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. Wesley laughs while asking Karen if she thought he was stupid enough to put a loaded gun on the table. Karen pulls the trigger again. The bullets hit Wesley's chest and he dies instantly. She gets up shocked and scared and makes a run for it. How the hell did that happen? The next episode starts from where we left off. Karen throws the gun in the river and goes home. She can't sleep, so she opts to heavily drink in an attempt to forget what she's just done. She has a nightmare where Fisk appears and tells her that killing gets easier the more you do it.
It gets easier the more you do it.
Yikes. Karen still can't sleep. She gets up and goes to the office just to be somewhere that feels normal. Foggy is also there.
It's okay. It's just me. The dick.
He tells her that whatever happened between him and Matt doesn't change the fact that they're still going after Fisk. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Vanessa finally wakes up, and Fisk is more than happy to see her alive. He promises to make those who hurt Vanessa suffer. Fisk then receives news that Wesley has been located, and he goes to find him at the same position where Karen shot him multiple times. He grieves for him and even assaults one of his men for allowing Wesley to go alone. Owsley holds him back and puts some sense into him. Later on, Matt meets up with Ulrich and gives him some information about the blind drug dealer. He gives Matt a location and he heads there straight away. Meanwhile, Foggy's meeting with his pretty ex and gives her a file to read. Karen also catches up with Ulrich and tells him that Fisk knows they visited his mother. Meanwhile, Matt follows one of Gal's blind drug carriers to the Steel Serpent heroin warehouse. After infiltrating the building, he finds dozens of blind people packing heroin. Gal spots him and orders the blind folks in Chinese. The blind people surround Matt and pin him down. Matt manages to get away from them and goes after Gal, and as Matt confronts her, she confesses that all those people blinded themselves willingly, and Matt had destroyed something they believed in by coming here. She hits Matt, sending him down to the ground, and when he gets up, Gao is nowhere to be seen. When Matt walks out, a police officer tries to arrest him but gets overpowered. Matt then tells the cop that he's not the one who shot them, and that some of his co-workers are working for Fisk. Gao meets up with Owlsley and tells him that she's departing for her home country to think about the future. Gao and Owlsley arranged Vanessa's poisoning, but Fisk still has no idea. They get irritated when they hear that Vanessa survived the ordeal. Meanwhile, Ulrich goes to tell his wife and tells her that he quit his job as a journalist. He also phones Karen and tells her the same. As he enters his apartment, Fisk is seated there waiting for him. You can feel Fisk's aura from a mile away. Fisk tells Ulrich that going after his beloved mother was a really huge mistake. Fisk quickly gets up and chokes Ulrich to death on the floor. He stands up looking at Ulrich's dead body. He seems satisfied and then leaves the apartment. Man, that's cold. The final episode of Season 1 begins with Ulrich's funeral. Matt, Karen, Doris, and all his loved ones are standing next to his grave, dressed in black. They watch as his coffin is lowered to the ground. Such an emotional moment. Karen talks to Doris, blaming herself for Ulrich's death. Doris tells her that Ulrich was the man who would never take on something he didn't want to do. He would fight until the very end, and he went down like a true hero. Back at the penthouse, Fisk tells Vanessa about her moving out of the country and checking on some funds. Vanessa is visibly not on board with this plan. Fisk later meets up with Owlsley and inquires about Gao, who has fled the country by now. Fisk has also discovered their involvement in Vanessa's poisoning. He confronts Owlsley directly, and he doesn't deny it. He claims that Vanessa was making him soft and distracted from their main goal. He says that he's leaving him and taking half of Fisk's assets with him. He has Hoffman, and if Fisk does anything to him, Hoffman will report everything about him. Fisk, well, being Fisk, does not care about all that. He grabs him and throws him down an elevator shaft. Anyone who touches Vanessa, their fate is sealed. He then orders his men to locate Hoffman. Meanwhile, Matt and Foggy reconnect at Fogwell's gym. Foggy tells him that he got a call from Marcy, who pulled Landman and Zach's internal files on their work with Fisk. Matt wants to move immediately before anyone else does. Foggy wants Matt to use the law, but Matt knows very well that it won't work. Fisk has bought police officers and the media as well. As they head out, Matt overhears some of the cops talking about finding Hoffman, so he needs to find him first. Matt and Foggy head back to the office where they go through the Landman and Zach documents together with Karen, trying to find clues on where Owlsley could be hiding Hoffman. They finally get a clue, and Matt springs into action. Meanwhile, Fisk receives a call about the location of Hoffman. He orders the cops to eliminate him. Soon after, the cops arrive and kill everyone around Hoffman. And just as he's about to be shot, Matt jumps in to rescue him and beats the hell out of the cops. Matt tells Hoffman to talk to Mahoney and provide all evidence against Fisk. Hoffman does as instructed. He records a statement and spills everything. He names corrupt cops, politicians, executives, and senators. All of them get arrested, and Fisk's entire infrastructure is crumbling before his very eyes. Finally, after so long, the FBI comes to Fisk's apartment. And as they're about to arrest him, he gives one final thing to Vanessa.
Under arrest for racketeering. I want to ask you. Silent. Anything you say can be used against you.
He gives Vanessa the diamond ring as the feds take him away. Fisk truly loves this woman. Wow. Outside the penthouse, Fisk is taken into a truck for transportation. Along the road, armed mercenaries ambush the convoy and pull him out. All this is happening when Karen, Matt, and Foggy are celebrating his arrest. How quickly the tables turn. Matt heads to Potter and takes his suit, and he is now ready for action. Meanwhile, Fisk is being extracted to a helicopter. He calls Vanessa and tells her he's coming. Or so he thought. Matt cuts off the truck and it rolls on the road. Fisk gets out and stares at Matt on the truck. And he tries to run, but is caught moments later. He gives his usual speech about transforming the city, but Matt knows it's all lies. And then the fight starts. The fight is brutal. Fisk is huge, armored, and vicious. He beats Matt to the ground, but Matt gets back up. After an intense fight, he's able to knock Fisk down. Mahoney arrives and points the gun at him. He lowers it after realizing who he was. He radios other cops, and they come to take Fisk. Vanessa gets on the helicopter and leaves the country, just like Fisk asked her to. Then Mahoney asks Matt what he's supposed to call him when he files his report.
So what am I supposed to call you when I file my report?
The papers call him Daredevil. Back at the office, Foggy puts the Nelson and Murdock placard back outside the entrance door, and they get back to work. Meanwhile, Fisk sits in a cell at Rikers Island Prison. He is staring at the blank wall just like his father made him do when he was a boy. Old habits die hard. Back in the city, Daredevil, in his full suit, goes back to work protecting the city below him. In the first episode of Season 2, Hell's Kitchen without Wilson Fisk feels like a breath of fresh air. Crime is still there, obviously, because it's New York, and crime is basically like a utility service at this point. But it's something Daredevil can handle. With the big man gone, there is a power vacuum in the city, and every gang in town is scrambling to fill the space. Nelson and Murdock are getting clients now. Real ones. The law firm is still broke, but they're getting by day. Karen is keeping the lights on through the sheer force of will and Matt's optimism. Matt is doing his lawyer thing by day and his rooftop jumping thing by night. Perfect balance. Later that night, we see that Kitchen Irish, one of Hell's Kitchen's oldest crime families, is having a celebration. Fisk is gone, the power vacuum is there for the taking, and their leader, Nesbitt, is kinda feeling himself. He gives a powerful speech, and just as he's about to finish, gunshots ring through the room. An intense gunfight ensues, and when it's over, everyone who is present is dead, except for a low-level runner named Grotto. He heads to Josie's bar, where Foggy, Karen, and Matt are enjoying their night. Matt senses his intense heartbeat and goes to talk to him. He tells them everything and collapses in the end due to bleeding. Matt and Foggy get to the crime scene, and what a sight! I'm talking dead bodies everywhere, limbs missing, and holes through bodies large enough to see through. A bloody massacre. Mahoney stonewalls them, but Matt's listening to the detectives on the other side of the tape. Mahoney tells them someone is wiping out the gangs with armor-piercing weapons. Military-grade type weapons. And they're not robbing the gangs, they're just wiping them entirely. At the hospital, Karen is sitting with Grotto, who's trying to leave the hospital. Karen convinces him to stay, and Grotto warns her that she's not ready for what's about to happen. Meanwhile, Daredevil tracks down Turk Barrett, the city's most reliable criminal informant, who's also sick of being thrown against walls. After a few punches and bone breakings, he tells Matt that with Fisk out of the picture, every gang is stacking weapons to take over the vast empire left behind. And apparently, the Mexican cartel has been building an arsenal in the meatpacking district. Elsewhere, Foggy tries to visit an old contact named Smitty, hoping to get some information. A man named Jimmy the Bear, who did not get the memo about being helpful, has Foggy forcefully removed from the premises. Leon, a slightly less hostile biker, tells Foggy that Smitty is dead. Same killing style of brutal elimination. Matt goes to the meatpacking district to check it out. He finds the cartel members hanging from meat hooks. All of them are dead except for one, who's barely alive. He unhooks him and puts him down. He says that they were not attacked by an army. They were attacked by one man. Who the hell is this mysterious man? Back at the hospital, Karen is watching over Grotto when the shooter shows up. Not to rob the place, but to finish the job. He walks in calmly and shoots at Grotto as they run away from him. The shooter is exceptionally calm, kind of like Terminator. No feelings, just shooting. They get into a car and drive off. They think they've escaped, but there's a sniper on top of a roof aiming at Grotto. And just as he's about to shoot, Daredevil stops him. They battle it out, and Daredevil is defeated, but still wakes up and chases after the shooter. Daredevil thinks he's got the shooter when the shooter pulls an unexpected move.
Bang.
The bullet throws Daredevil down the stairs. The next episode starts with Foggy desperately looking for Matt. He overhears police radio about a gunfight and rushes to the rooftop. He sees Matt laying on the floor and he removes his helmet. And Matt is struggling to breathe. Matt wakes up in Foggy's apartment in pain. He still wants to go out and deal with the shooter, but Foggy tells him he needs some rest. Meanwhile, Karen has dragged Grotto to the 15th precinct to get him to witness protection before the shooter tries again. Grotto is clearly scared. He's a career criminal who's seen some wild things out there, yet even he is shaken. He tells Karen that he heard rumors but never believed that one man could operate like this. One man taking down more than 20 men effortlessly was something unheard of. Back at the apartment, Matt is struggling to do basic things, since the bullet shot did some damage to his enhanced hearing. Now he can't hear anything. And for Matt, losing hearing is like going blind twice. His hearing is basically everything to him. We get introduced to District Attorney Samantha Reyes, a sharp political lawyer who looks like the kind who steps on others and makes them smaller. She shows up with her assistant, Blake Tower, and tries to absorb Grotto's case. He tells Foggy off in a demanding way, but he stands his ground and pretends to call the U.S. Attorney's office. She backs off finally, and the case is still his. Reyes sits Grotto down with the photos of the shooter's previous victims. Not as sympathy, but as a threat. The message is clear. Everyone who survives this guy ends up dead one way or another. Reyes asks Grotto to take their deal, which is to wear a wire and meet with a dangerous man named Brass. Meanwhile, Blake gives Karen and Foggy more information about the killer.
They're calling this one the Punisher.
The killer's nickname is the Punisher. And speak of the devil, the Punisher is running errands. He visits a pawn shop run by a guy named Clint, asking for police radio equipment. He pays for the surveillance tape and the shells from the gun Clint has under the counter. Clint is overexcited about making a couple of grand in one go and offers the Punisher some CP. Big mistake.
What the hell are you doing? I'm just trying to make a buck.
Clint does not survive the conversation. Karen visits Matt in his apartment and updates him on the discovery about the Punisher. She also says how Daredevil, taking the law into his own hands, opened the door for violence across the city. Matt then heads to Potter, who looks at the cracked helmet. He tells Matt that the angle of the shot confirms that it was a warning shot, not a kill shot. The Punisher chose not to kill him. He asks Potter to repair the helmet because he needs it to go out again. Matt goes out and finds the Punisher's hideout filled with weapons, explosives, and police equipment. Meanwhile, Grotto takes Reyes' deal. He agreed to wear the wire to meet Brass. Reyes is running a political campaign rather than prosecution by setting up a sting operation at a container yard. She's using Grotto as bait, and they're not trying to protect him. They're trying to draw the Punisher out into the open. Foggy and Karen figure out the plan when it's too late. The Punisher has also figured it out because he hacked into the NYPD frequencies. He rams a stolen truck into the yard as a distraction. He climbs on a rooftop and aims at Grotto. Daredevil arrives just on time, and they battle it out again. Reyes orders a SWAT team to open fire on both of them, because why not add attempted murder of a vigilante to the evening's agenda? SWAT team fires at them, and they fall through a glass ceiling. Both men are seriously wounded. Foggy runs to the scene, and he arrives to see neither Matt nor the Punisher there. They've both run away. Episode 3 begins with Matt waking up on a rooftop, chained. The Punisher patiently awaits for him to regain consciousness and greets him.
Morning, sunshine.
Matt tries to struggle and yell, but the Punisher tells him that all of this is basically pointless. Matt asks him why he didn't take his mask off. The Punisher says he doesn't care who he is. Matt senses that he has military-grade weapons with him. The Punisher says he will do what's required of him, and with Matt chained to a rooftop chimney, yeah, he doesn't have much leverage in this matter. Meanwhile, Foggy is busy trying to find Matt. He goes to Metro General and finds Claire Temple. She's not thrilled to see Foggy since she knows what he wants. Back in the office, Karen calls Grotto and tells him to turn himself in to witness protection. He refuses and tells her she can kiss his ass goodbye, cause he's done with them. At the rooftop, Matt and the Punisher are in a deep argument about justice and the line between vigilantism and execution. They're arguing about whether mercy is a strength or a weakness. As they're arguing, someone comes up to the rooftop after hearing their commotion. Back at the hospital, Claire says that she's not seen Matt since he was last patched up. The emergency room is filled with injured rival gangs who are trying to kill each other while in the hospital. One of the gang members frees himself from the hospital bed handcuffs and charges at his enemy. Back at the rooftop, an old man named Jerry wanders up and meets the Punisher, who introduces himself as Frank. They engage in a normal conversation about the Marine Corps service. Matt tries to signal Jerry that something's wrong by rattling the chains. The Punisher cocks a gun and points it at Jerry through the door. Matt senses the gun and stays still. Jerry leaves alive, luckily. The Punisher comes back to Matt and they continue arguing. Matt calls him insane and this pisses him off so bad that he knocks Matt out. At the hospital, two rival gang members are about to stab each other when Foggy, in a genuinely great moment, talks them down by appealing to their own self-interest. He successfully de-escalates the situation and they stop scaring the rest of the patients. Matt wakes up again. This time he has a gun duct taped and has one bullet. The Punisher drags Grotto to the rooftop. He gives Matt three choices: let Punisher kill Grotto, kill the Punisher himself, or kill Grotto himself. Since the Punisher is wearing body armor, the only way to stop him with one bullet is with a headshot. Either way, someone needs to die at Matt's hand. Quite the dilemma. Matt does what he does best, finding another option. He shoots the chains instead, breaks free, and launches himself at the Punisher, trying to stop the whole thing. Sadly, he's not fast enough. Grotto gets shot by the Punisher. Matt beats the Punisher up and then goes to try and save Grotto, who's bleeding a lot. He ends up dying in his arms. Damn. Matt gets up, furious, and heads to the Punisher, who blows up a motorcycle parking lot below them to draw out the Dogs of Hell, a motorbike gang. Matt knocks the Punisher out and carries him to the elevator. He buys time for Jerry to escape as well, then fights every single one of the gangsters. I'm talking 37 seconds of pure adrenaline-filled action. The episode ends with Karen at the office looking through the Punisher's file that Blake Tower had slipped her. She opens an X-ray of a skull with a bullet hole in it. Someone shot this man in the head, and somehow he's still alive. Wow. The next episode starts with the Kitchen Irish grieving their dead loved ones. An Irish crime lord named Finn Cooley shows up at the wake for Burring Club victims, the gang members who were massacred in episode 1. He walks up to the coffin of his son, and then, as one man pats his shoulder to offer him condolences, he kills him with an ice pick. He addresses the room saying he lost $1.2 million and he will do anything to find the man who did this. The Kitchen Irish rampage through New York, shooting information out of people. They get several clues of who orchestrated the bloodbath and are now one step ahead. Matt, Foggy, and Karen attend the funeral of Grotto. They're the only people there. Father Lantom presides over it. And when it's over, he talks to Matt, and he goes to work. Meanwhile, at the office, Karen has taken the Punisher's file and gone rogue. Matt goes to see Potter and gets his newly repaired suit from him. Karen tracks down a nurse named George Bach, who tells her something that stops everything.
That bullet tore through his head. Not many people survive that.
An unidentified man was brought to the hospital with a bullet in his head. The guy technically died and then came back. The unidentified man asked Bach to take him home, and he does, something which gets Bach fired. He proceeds to give Karen his address. The Punisher is seated at Central Park at night in front of a carousel. He knows the Irish found his hideout, so he came here instead, intentionally. They surround him, and he fights off some of them. He eventually is overwhelmed and tased until he becomes unconscious. Elsewhere, Matt meets up with Mahoney, who gives him info on the shootings being done by the Irish in search of the Punisher. He then goes to the park and finds a wounded Irishman. He gets the location of where they took the Punisher. Meanwhile, Finn Cooley has the Punisher tied up in a chair, demanding his money back. The Punisher doesn't reveal the location of Finn's money, but instead torments him about his dead son. Finn tortures him, but the Punisher says nothing. Meanwhile, Karen finds the address and enters the house. It's empty, but well preserved. She goes through the house and enters a child's bedroom, and she sees a book titled One Batch, Two Batch, Penny and Dime. She sees military medals and photographs of a family, a man named Frank Castle with a woman and 2 children. Karen begins to understand that this isn't a monster's origin story. This is a man's grief turned into a weapon. Finn Cooley brings out the Punisher's dog and threatens to torture it. And that's where he draws the line. His dog is his most prized possession. A true follower of John Wick, a deadly fighter, and a dog lover. The Punisher gives up the location of a van with the money, and Cooley sends his men. In the same building, Daredevil is taking out the Irishmen one after another. Cooley's men find the van and open up a briefcase. They see the cash and confirm it, but there is something else. The van explodes, typical Punisher style. He had planned everything from the beginning. The Punisher frees himself from the restraints and clears out the room. He asks Cooley who killed his family. Cooley doesn't have a clear answer. Wrong choice. The Punisher shoots him in the face. Daredevil arrives just as the Punisher is trying to fight his way out. He takes out the men in front of him. They fight back to back through the kitchen Irish. This is the first time we see Daredevil and the Punisher fighting on the same side, not as rivals. And it's spectacular. Matt stops him from killing anyone, which the Punisher finds both admirable and deeply irritating. Matt takes him to a cemetery. The Punisher is barely standing. Matt asks him about the chant he did back there. 1 batch, 2 batch, penny and dime. The Punisher says it was from his daughter's favorite book. He gave him his backstory about the day he lost his family in a gang shootout while he was in the park. He regrets not reading the book to his daughter, who begged him to read it to her. The Punisher promises Matt that he's done killing. For good. Brett Mahoney shows up with backup and arrests the Punisher. Matt tells Mahoney to take credit for the arrest, to make the city know that the cops can still do their job, and so he lets Matt go. Back at Josie's, Matt, Foggy, and Karen toast the slightly safer Hell's Kitchen. Foggy notices that Matt looks happier than usual. They leave the bar while it's raining, and Karen offers to take Matt to his apartment. They share a kiss in the rain, and Matt tells her that they should have dinner sometime. She agrees, clearly excited. Matt gets into his apartment and smiles while drinking a beer. He suddenly catches a knife thrown at him. A woman in a black dress is seated on his sofa. She greets him, and immediately he knows who it is.
Hello.
Elektra.
The woman is Elektra. Episode 5 opens with a brief flashback. 10 years ago, Matt and Foggy crashed a faculty party. Foggy goes straight to the caviar and indulges. Matt is about to be escorted out when a lady in black tells the security officer he's with her. Back to the present, Matt is not happy to see her. Elektra apologizes for how things ended, with the energy of someone who doesn't apologize often and finds the experience rather satisfying. Elektra tells him she needs his legal help in getting back her father's holdings that Roxxon Corporation absorbed after his death. Matt tells Elektra that he can't help her because he doesn't trust her. At the office, Foggy and Karen are going through the Punisher's file. Karen found a photograph of the Castle family that includes the wife and daughter of the Punisher. Karen told everyone she broke into his house to get it, something which Matt and Foggy are not smiling about. Meanwhile, Foggy says that a deposit has been made to their bank, and Matt immediately knows who's behind it. He rushes outside to go find Elektra. Back at the party 10 years ago, Elektra introduced herself to Matt. They have a brief conversation, and Matt tells Elektra how bored he is with the party. They ditch the party in an expensive car. They fall for each other fast. Matt takes her to Fogwell's gym and tells her about his father. Elektra listens to Matt's story, and they go out to the boxing ring for a match. They passionately kiss and make out. Clearly, these two are exceptionally matched in ways that are both wonderful and terrible. In the present, Matt heads over to Elektra's board meeting and hides himself in a corner, eavesdropping on the entire conversation. Karen heads to the Bulletin, where she meets up with Mitchell Ellison, the editor-in-chief at the New York Bulletin. She wants to know why the Castle story has parts omitted, parts about him being in the Navy and having a family. Ellison lets Karen go into their archives, and she begins searching. 3 hours later, they find nothing. Ellison comes in and helps her. He finds something. A Central Park shooting from the right period. No civilian casualties reported. 3 gangs involved: Kitchen Irish, Mexican Cartel, and Dogs of Hell. These are the same gangs the Punisher had been eliminating. Matt takes Karen to dinner. He then gets a call from Elektra, who's been listening in on a Roxxon meeting and saw him on the rooftop watching. Not so sleek after all. She tells him she never really needed him, and he can keep the money. Back to the past, Elektra takes Matt somewhere, and she says it belongs to one of her father's associates. Big house, but empty. He then hears commotion upstairs, but Elektra tells him not to worry. She goes up, and Matt follows her. He comes face to face with Roscoe Sweeney, the fixer who got his father killed. Back in the present, Matt tells Karen that he doesn't like the place they're currently having dinner in, so they head over to a cheap Indian place instead. They both feel better there. Karen opens up about her life before New York when she was in Vermont. They talk happily, and when the date's over, Matt escorts Karen home. They kiss on the stairs, and Matt refuses to go up to Karen's home because he doesn't want to ruin the night. Back in time, at Elektra's place, she has Roscoe as a gift for Matt. She tells him to let it all out, and Matt beats the living hell out of Roscoe. Elektra tells Matt to kill him. He refuses to kill him and instead calls the police. In the present, Matt goes to Elektra's penthouse and asks her about the night at the mansion. Just as they're talking, they hear people approaching the building. It's the Yakuza. Elektra hacked Roxxon's servers during their meeting, so they're coming for whoever did it. Matt is confused and tries to leave. Elektra shows him his Daredevil suit, which she had prepared and brought. She knew Matt would come. She always knew.
Do I need to push you this time?
Episode 6 begins with the Yakuza breaking into Elektra's penthouse, only to find her and Daredevil waiting for them. The fight is brief, and the aftermath is a lot of unconscious men and 2 composed people asking each other if they're hungry. Matt and Elektra are eating at a diner. Matt demands to know what she's doing in New York, and she tells him that the Yakuza never left. They have partnered with Roxxon, funneling something through the city with corporate cover. She says that she will leave the city and him for good once Matt helps her deal with the Yakuza. He doesn't have an option, so he agrees. Nelson and Murdock get a visitor, Christopher Roth, the public defender assigned to Frank Castle's case. He needs Karen to sign the official Metro General shootout report. She reads it and says it's completely wrong. Karen refuses to sign it. Matt suggests the firm take over Castle's defense. Foggy is totally against this. Matt insists that they cannot let Reyes steamroll the justice system. Foggy clearly hates this, and they both know it's going to get real messy. They go ahead and take the case. Matt, Karen, and Foggy head to the hospital to see Castle. Frank Castle does not want to talk to the Matt at all. They go back and forth until Karen walks up to his bed and shows him his family photo. He becomes curious and asks her where she got the picture from. Moments later, Reyes shows up, furious that Nelson and Murdock are now Castle's counsel. Matt lists her misconduct regarding Grotto, and as they're talking, Mahoney comes out and says that Frank Castle had already abandoned Roth in favor of Nelson and Murdock as his attorneys. Reyes has lost, and she knows it. Meanwhile, Matt gets in a car with Elektra, and they attend a gala at the Yakatomi building. She needs access to a ledger with Roxxon's transaction records. Back at the hospital, Karen and Foggy talk to Castle. Frank only wants to talk to Karen, and Foggy heads out of the hospital room. Frank asks Karen what she knows about his family, and she hands him the police report. Frank listens to every detail in shock since it's all a lie. Reyes is running with a false story. Frank tells her about Central Park and the 3 gangs that were there that day. He blames himself for not getting his family out on time. Karen listens and says she needs to leave, but Frank asks her to stay for a while. Back at the gala, Matt bumps into a car key holder, spills wine on him deliberately, and follows him to the bathroom, where he puts him and his guards to sleep. He takes the cars from him. He does all of this while dressed in a gala with a drink in his hand using a white cane. Pretty impressive, not gonna lie. At the hospital, Foggy visits Frank and explains to him what's on the table. Reyes wants the death penalty and extradition to Delaware. Luckily for Frank, Foggy's team has managed to get that off the table and down to 1 life sentence with possibility for parole. Foggy tells Frank to plead guilty when the judge comes. Moments later, Reyes and the judge show up, and the judge asks how he pleads. He responds,
I plead not guilty. You hear that, witch?
He does the exact opposite and pleads not guilty. Everyone stares in shock. His bail is denied and a court date is set. Foggy and Karen now have to prepare for trial. Matt and Elektra get to the ledger and fight their way out of the building. They pretend to be a drunk couple who broke into the room for an intimate session. It's a very ridiculous plan that works because Elektra delivers it with complete conviction. They finally leave the building and enter their car. The ledger reveals weapons, drugs, and workers shipped from Japan, but a critical section is encrypted, and neither of them know the code. Matt goes to his apartment and finds Foggy waiting for him. He tells him how Frank pleaded not guilty, and the People v. Frank Castle starts in 1 week. The next episode begins with the People v. Castle trial. Frank is brought up to the jury, chained and dressed in orange. 400 potential jurors are interviewed before they settle on a panel. Back at the office, Matt, Foggy, and Karen come up with a plan. Using PTSD as a defense strategy, Foggy argues against it. They then lay out the groundwork. Castle was a broken man who came home from war to find his family murdered, and the system that was supposed to protect them covered it up. Sounds like a solid plan. Karen then goes to visit Castle to get his approval. He refuses immediately without hesitation. He says that he wasn't suffering from PTSD and would not let them use that framing. It would be an insult to veterans who genuinely suffered. Meanwhile, Matt is not at this meeting because Elektra called him. She found who encrypted the ledger, a man named Cabroni. Matt tells Elektra that he's occupied, but Elektra doesn't want to hear any of it. They go at night to meet Cabroni, and he tells them the ledger lists incoming shipments and gives them the time and location for that night. Matt tells him to find better business partners while Elektra jokes about his terrible interior design taste. Back at the office, Foggy is working late. Karen arrives with a lead. The medical examiner's files on the Castle family have discrepancies. Dr. Gregory Tepper may have falsified the autopsies. This is a good lead, and Foggy calls Matt to update him. Matt is on the other side of town with Elektra at a railroad. They find the rail car from the ledger, they open it, and it's full of dirt. Just dirt. Not weapons, drugs, or contraband. Turns out it was a setup. The Yakuza ambush them, and they fight them off. Elektra is sliced by a blade at the back of her neck, but she survives. Matt stitches up Elektra's neck at his apartment. He points out the scars he got from fighting with Nobu Yoshioka. She recognizes the name and knows him by reputation. They continue talking, and Elektra is all lovey-dovey with Matt. Clearly, she still wants him. Matt oversleeps and wakes up late for court. Opening statements are happening without him. Reyes starts boldly claiming that Frank is a serial killer. Foggy is next, and he's already panicking since he's about to deliver his statement alone. He decides, you know what? Screw it. He stands up and begins making his statement. He says a pretty excellent statement that saves his team. Matt walks in midway through, while Foggy's in the middle of his finest moment as a lawyer. Foggy and Karen are visibly furious. Matt promises to handle Tepper on the stand the next day. Karen comes to Matt's apartment and they go through the strategy. They talk about Daredevil, Castle, and whether what Castle did was wrong. They finish talking and Matt escorts Karen out. Then Elektra, who was eavesdropping from upstairs, emerges. Matt tells her that Karen matters to him and how work is important as well, so she needs to stay out of both. Matt shares his research that the dirt from the Roxxon railcar connects to a specific construction site, Midland Circle. Matt remembers that address because he saw it on a map when tracking Nobu back in Season 1. It's court day and Tepper takes the stand. This cross-examination is going on well until Tepper stops mid-testimony and asks to make a statement. The jury gets cleared and Tepper confesses. He falsified the Castle family autopsy. He claims a woman with a foreign accent came to his house and threatened to kill him if he didn't confess. We all know who the woman was. It was none other than Elektra. Matt corners Foggy in the men's room and tells him about Elektra being the new client he was telling them about. Foggy is extremely angry about it and yells at Matt for lying to him. Again. He's angry and tells Matt he won't be counting on Matt for anything anymore and storms out in frustration. Matt meets up with Elektra and confronts her about interfering with his life. Next, they ambush a Yakuza construction site. They fight off a bunch of them and enter the site, and they discover something strange. The Yakuza are digging a hole. Not just any hole, though. A large, deep hole. Matt drops a flashlight, and it doesn't even hit the bottom. The next episode starts where we left off. Matt's flashlight finally hits the ground after 40 seconds. Suddenly, they get ambushed by a bunch of ninjas. They fight them off, and Elektra gets a serious injury from the fight. They're both cornered and overwhelmed, and just as Matt is about to be struck to death by a sword, Stick appears and saves them. Stick to the rescue. They get into the car and drive off. The ninjas are following them like crazy. They manage to reach Matt's apartment, and Matt spends the next hour following Stick's instructions and basically praying while Stick is treating Elektra. Matt can feel that Elektra is dying. Her hope lies with Stick. Stick treats her wound, and her heart slowly begins to stabilize. Then Matt realizes that Stick has known Elektra all along. Turns out they know each other from way back. Matt is not pleased and demands answers from Stick. At court, Foggy has called Colonel Ray Schoonover to the stand. He's a decorated veteran, also Castle's commanding officer. He says he owes his life to Frank Castle multiple times over. He calls Frank Castle a hero in front of the entire courtroom. Reyes is not loving any second of this. She tries asking Colonel Ray if what he's saying is true, and he defends himself accurately. Foggy and Karen are happy with this. Things are going pretty smoothly. Back at the apartment, Stick tells Matt about an ancient organization called The Hand. Matt thinks it's all lies and calls it a fairy tale. Stick proves him wrong by telling him about the hole under Midland Circle. Stick also tells Matt that Elektra has been working for him all along. At the trial, Foggy brings up Dr. Andrew Lee to the stand. Lee testifies about Frank's brain injury. The bullet is lodged in his head, and it keeps him trapped in a permanent state of reliving the worst day of his life. The jury is keenly listening, and their medical angle might actually work. As Foggy is talking, a young man stands up in the courtroom and starts screaming. His father is among those killed by Frank, and his name is Brian. He shouts at Frank that he's a murderer. He's quickly removed from the court. Afterwards, Karen goes to talk to Frank, and she agrees to take the stand in his defense. At Matt's apartment, Elektra is slowly recovering. She tells Matt that everything Stick said is true. She confirms all of it. She also tells him something else. She fell in love with him 10 years ago against Stick's orders. Elektra says that when she thought she was dying, she felt empty in a way. She hadn't expected it. Matt asks her to leave Stick and fight the hand with him instead. They'll do things Matt's way, basically beating people up without actually killing them. She actually considers it. And then Paige arrives. She opens the door and sees Elektra in Matt's bed. Awkward. She tells Matt his friend Foggy could use some help in the case tomorrow, and then she leaves. The next day in court, Matt calls Frank to the stand. As Frank is going to the stand, Matt hears a guard whisper something to him. Clearly, someone got to Frank. Matt goes ahead and makes a passionate speech about men and women who take the law into their own hands out of desperation. He calls Frank a hero who broke under the weight of the unbreakable loss. The courtroom applauds. Frank then asks for permission to speak. He goes haywire and tells the court he would do it again. All of it. He calls himself the Punisher and dares anyone to do anything about it. This sends the entire courtroom into a state of shock and disbelief. Outside of the courthouse, Foggy and Karen are pissed at Matt for not making Frank tell his emotional story. Foggy says he's glad they lost and walks off. Karen is furious about his recent behavior and walks off as well. Matt is left all alone. Back in Matt's apartment, Elektra and Stick get into a confrontation, and Stick asks her what she thinks will happen once Matt finds out who she really is. She slaps Stick angrily, and Stick walks away. Matt later arrives home and is ambushed by a ninja wearing black. They fight off in his apartment, and Matt overpowers him and asks him who he works for. He listens to his heartbeat and notices it's just a kid. Elektra comes with a knife and slices the kid's throat, killing him instantly. Matt falls to the ground in shock at what Elektra has just done.
You still want me?
At Rikers Island, Frank Castle is being processed. A guard walks him across the yard. Someone is waiting for him. A large man lifting weights watches Frank arrive with the calm of a man who has been expecting him. He turns around and looks at Frank. And the man is Wilson Fisk. He looks at Frank, smiling, and acknowledges him for getting his message. Episode 9 begins with a flashback of Wilson Fisk arriving at Rikers Island months ago. He has been doing what he does best in every environment, building. While inside, a lawyer named Donovan has been keeping Fisk's affairs in order. Then he makes friends with a white-collar criminal named Finney, a really smart fella who wants Fisk's protection inside the prison. Fisk has been quiet, methodical, and assembling pieces while everyone assumes that a person in prison is powerless. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Matt is with Elektra, who's telling him how the young hand ninja's body was taken care of. Matt still does not agree with her decision, saying the young hand was just a scared little boy and there was no need to kill him. Elektra says the same as adrenaline that was spiked when she was about to kill Roscoe Sweeney spiked when she killed the boy. She did not do it out of necessity, but because she wanted to. Elektra tells him that she first killed someone when she was 12 years old. Not in self-defense, but she wanted to. Matt tells her to leave. Fisk meets with Frank in the yard, and they have a chat. Fisk tells him that he knows who killed his family. This gets Frank curious, and he asks for a name. Dutton. Fisk tells him Dutton is the man who had a direct hand in the death of his family, and he wants him dead, because on Fisk's side, he has made his life in prison rather difficult. Finney gives Frank a shiv, and the instructions are clear. 7 minutes to get Dutton, get answers, and get out. Foggy meets up with Matt and tells him that he's being scouted by a serious firm. Foggy also adds that their law firm is basically in its dying phase. Foggy is also against Matt's vigilante activities, and it always bugs the hell out of him. Matt says that's who he is, and he's done apologizing for that. Foggy then walks away. Karen meets up with Foggy and tells him about her findings. Foggy seems to not be interested considering their fallout with Matt. He tells Karen to start thinking of a life beyond their office. Karen then goes to Ellison and tells him what she has found. Back in prison, Frank is given 7 minutes to do what he needs to do. He enters Dutton's cell and takes out his guards. He then tells them they need to talk. Meanwhile, Daredevil heads to the farm, a facility the Hand is using. He took one member of the Hand named Stan Gibson there as a guide and told him to wait outside. Meanwhile, Karen and Ellison visit Gregory Tepper. Tepper tells them that the John Doe from the Central Park Massacre, the unaccounted body, wasn't just a random person. He was an undercover cop. Someone made him disappear completely from the records. Back in prison, Frank interrogates Dutton and makes him speak about the Central Park Massacre. Dutton tells Frank about a Central Park deal, basically a heroin buy that was orchestrated by someone called the Blacksmith. The guy never showed up. The Kitchen Irish, Mexican Cartel, and Dogs of Hell were all together. When the Blacksmith failed to come, they grew suspicious of each other and a gunfight erupted. That's why everything blew up, killing Castle's family. After getting all the information, Frank stabs Dutton and tries to leave. He heads to the cell doors and tells the prison guards to open the door, and they refuse. The guard opens the other cell doors instead. Fisk appears and thanks Frank for his service.
Mr. Castle, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you.
Dutton's men pour out of the cells. Frank fights all of them, he beats the hell out of all those prisoners, and he's seriously wounded but keeps on fighting. Frank was built for this. He kills them all, and the anti-riot guards come in to drag him out. Back at the farm, Matt enters and he finds a secret member of the Hand called Hirochi and confronts him. He hears weird sounds coming from the basement. Matt realizes it's the sounds of blood dripping. Karen and Ellison head back to the bulletin, and Ellison offers Karen Ben Urich's old office. Karen sits down at the desk and finds her file, with the first page being a newspaper article about the accident that caused her brother's death. She breaks down crying. Ellison tells her Urich didn't care about that, and neither does he. In prison, Fisk and Frank are having a conversation. Frank asks him why he wanted him dead, and Fisk says he changed his mind on killing him after witnessing him kill all those other prisoners. Frank has talent that Fisk wants to use fully. He sets him free and tells him to find the blacksmith. In the basement of the farm, Matt finds cages. Inside those cages, there are young people with tubes in their arms. Their blood is being drained by pipes that are flowing to a stone sarcophagus at the center of the room. Some really weird stuff is going on here. Gibson enters and sees his son among the people being drained of blood. As he saves him, a ninja appears and tells Matt that the draining hasn't finished yet. Back in prison, Frank is enjoying a meal next to Dutton, who is on life support. Fisk is literally celebrating as the new prison kingpin. Meanwhile, Frank escapes from prison dressed in a riot police uniform. Back in the basement, Matt fights with the ninja in one hell of a fight. The ninja pushes the stone sarcophagus into an elevator and removes his hood.
You're dead.
Nobu Yashioka, the man who was set on fire and left for dead, is alive. Episode 10 starts at the farm. Matt gets everyone out eventually. He puts Mahoney in charge of the victims and tells him to take them to the Metro General quietly. Nothing formal, no paperwork, because if the Hand knows where they are, they'll come back for them. Mahoney does as Matt instructs because despite everything, he trusts Matt more than he trusts the system. The victims are taken to the hospital and Claire hides them in the hospital's unfinished wing. Claire examines them and discovers that the patient's fingerprints have been burned off. These people were disappeared on purpose. Matt comes to Claire to talk about the patients. She examines him as well and gives him 2 aspirin tablets for the bone bruise. Then Matt overhears police radio. Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, has escaped from prison. Matt, Karen, and Foggy get summoned to Reyes' office. She wants their help finding Frank. Matt tells her she owes them everything, and she breaks down sobbing. She tells them about the Central Park Massacre and how it was a sting operation to catch the blacksmith. She thought of clearing the civilians from the park, but an empty park would raise suspicion, so she decided to let the civilians stay in place. Big mistake. Blacksmith didn't show up, and a bloody shootout ensued between 3 gangs. People died, including Frank's family. To make matters worse, Reyes shows them an x-ray of a skull she found in her daughter's backpack. Frank is on to her. Then Matt hears a gun being cocked outside the window.
I just want to keep my family safe.
Bullets rain through the room as Matt throws himself over Karen. Reyes is shot multiple times and dies instantly. Foggy gets shot in the arm and is lucky to be alive. Afterwards, Matt goes to visit Fisk at Rikers Island. He walks in and sits in front of him. He accuses Fisk of engineering Frank's escape. He denies it pleasantly. Matt then goes ahead and threatens the very one thing Wilson Fisk loves, Vanessa. He says he'll use every legal tool to ensure Vanessa can never return to New York. Bad idea, bro.
And I get her visa pulled. I can prove she was an accomplice to every one of your crimes.
Fisk breaks his bonds, grabs Matt's head, and slams it into the table. Matt bleeds from his lip as Fisk tells him that when he gets out of prison, he's going to destroy both of his and Foggy's lives. Matt leaves the prison, traumatized by that encounter. Elektra is at an airplane hangar somewhere, and she gets approached by a man named Jacques Duchon. He flirts with her, and Elektra gives him a false name. He says he knows who she really is. Meanwhile, Karen and Ellison rush over to Tepper's house to warn him that he is in danger. Upon reaching there, they're too late. Tepper's already dead. The way he was killed makes Karen know that it wasn't Frank who did it. It doesn't match his methods. Someone else is doing this. Matt goes to meet Claire at the rooftop, and she's concerned about him not having enough sleep. That's the least of his problems, since he has bigger fish to fry. Karen goes to her apartment accompanied by 2 police officers. They wait outside, and she quickly senses that something is wrong. She takes her gun out, and Frank enters the house. He tells her that it wasn't him doing the killings. Then bullets rain in her apartment as Frank jumps above her to protect her. She now believes that Frank is innocent. Back at the hangar, Elektra and Jacques are fighting. Jacques is overpowered and confesses that Stick sent him to kill her. She then proceeds to kill him. At the hospital, the young patients recovered from the farm are awake. Claire enters their wing and sees them standing together calmly. Claire looks down and sees that Stan Gibson is dead at their feet. Outside, the Hand is coming for them. Matt puts his helmet on, ready for action. Episode 11 begins with the Hand ninjas scaling the hospital building. They enter and fight off the police officers protecting the nurses. Claire tries to fight too, and a ninja hits her out of the window. She free falls down, and luckily Matt catches her with a grappling line before she hits the ground, Spider-Man style. The young patients who are supposed to be victims are helping the Hand take themselves back. Whatever was done to them, back in the cages, changed them completely. Mahoney calls Matt and tells him Karen was attacked. She's at the precinct giving her statement. She says she never saw anybody when the gunshots rang. She stayed hidden until everything cooled down. Matt arrives and Karen tells him she's being targeted because of the blacksmith. She also tells him that Frank saved her when the attack happened, but she did not tell the police that. Karen's taken back to her apartment under police protection. She goes back to her room, waits for the officers to position themselves outside, then goes to the parking garage where Frank is waiting in her car. At the hospital, Marcy visits Foggy. She tells him his opening statement in the Frank trial was so impressive that someone wants to hire him. These two are clearly still in love. Matt ambushes Hoffman and forces him to speak about the blacksmith. He tells him to go to Chinatown where he might get valuable info. Frank takes Karen to a diner for coffee. They talk and he asks about Matt and guesses correctly that they're in love. Karen says Matt hurts people he loves, but Frank tells her that he would give his life to have his wife hurt him again. He then notices the Buick that has been circling the block for the last 10 minutes. Karen quickly realizes she's been used as bait. Matt goes to Chinatown and finds Madame Gao running a dry cleaner, which is extremely obvious it's not one. He asks her to call off her men so that they can talk alone. She accepts. Back at the diner, the men come in. Frank fights all of them off with brutal efficiency. He beats one of them for the blacksmith's location. He gets an address and shoots the man dead. He tells Karen to call the police and get protective custody since she might be in danger after being seen together with Frank. Meanwhile, Matt continues talking to Madame Gao. He asks about the blacksmith, and she tells him that no one knows who he is, but he has the purest cocaine in the streets. She says his products come by ship. After their little chat, Matt goes to find the blacksmith. Back at the hospital, Claire quits her job after standing up to the hospital administration, who wanted the whole hospital incident to quiet down due to anonymous donations. Someone paid to let things slide. Later on, Matt goes to a pier on 41st Street. Frank is already there. He's found someone claiming to be the blacksmith. Matt tells Frank that the man is lying, but Frank does not want to hear any of that. He stops Frank from killing the man, making Frank extremely mad because Frank blames the blacksmith for killing his family, and he will do anything to see the guy dead. They fight on the boat until Frank throws him into the river. The man Matt saved radios for help, and it arrives in minutes. They open fire on Frank, and the ship explodes. Frank Castle survives because, of course, he does. At the Chaste stronghold, Stick gets news that Jacques is dead. The Chaste is also an ancient organization that was created to oppose the Hand. He sends 2 men to get something for him, and as they get into the car, Elektra kills them as well. We also see the patients who were taken by the Hand return to their blood donation activities. Back at Matt's apartment, a car crashes next to his door, and an almost dying man tells him that Elektra found Stick and is going to kill him. Meanwhile, Stick is sharpening his sword when Elektra walks in and tells him they need to talk. This episode begins with a flashback. When young Elektra was in training with the Chaste, she is showing an ability that unsettles everyone around her. She nearly kills her sparring partner. Back to the present, Elektra and Stick are fighting each other. Their fighting gets intense, and Matt shows up to separate them before they kill themselves. They are very adamant about killing themselves. The Hand ninjas appear, and the fight gets even more intense. The fight ends, and Stick is captured mid-fight. Matt says he's going after him, and so is Elektra. Matt wants to save him, while Elektra wants to kill him. At the pier, the police are removing burnt bodies from the scene. Karen is still not convinced that Frank is dead. She's told to go home. She heads to the office and talks with Ellison, grieving that Frank is dead. Ellison does not understand why Karen cares so much about him. Meanwhile, Matt makes his way through the Hand's tunnels alone. He spots some ninjas along the way and fights them off. They soon figure out how he's able to track them. He listens to the sounds of their weapons. That's why he knows where they are. They drop their weapons and go unarmed. Karen goes to visit Ray Schoonover. He is warm and receptive to Karen. He appreciates her for wanting to write something honest about Frank. They talk about Frank's memory, his relationship with his unit, and the kind of soldier he was. Karen sees a familiar photo of a man on Ray's wall. The man was a soldier, and Karen recognized him from when the dead bodies were being pulled out of the water after the explosion. She realizes that the blacksmith was Ray all along. Karen wants to quickly leave, but Ray holds a gun to her. Matt walks through the tunnels and is ambushed by the ninjas again. As they're attacking him, he hears Stick's voice through his enhanced hearing. He gives him tips on how to defeat them by tracking their breathing. Matt quickly adjusts his hearing and beats them up. Unfortunately, Stick is being brutally tortured by Hirochi. At the same time, Ray leads Karen into the car and tells her to drive. The radio is turned on loud and Karen picks up the hint. Frank is around. They drive off and a car rams into theirs and steers off the road. Matt finally comes to Stick's rescue, and Stick bites Hirochi's neck while he's distracted. Matt cuts him loose and carries him to safety. Elektra appears in front of them and tells Matt to step aside. He refuses. Just as they're talking, Nobu Yoshioka arrives with other ninjas. We get a brief flashback of young Elektra claiming her first kill. They call Elektra it instead of her. Wow. Back to the present, Nobu drops a bombshell.
You are the Black Sky.
Elektra is the Black Sky, not a weapon the Hand is hunting for. She is it. The thing the Hand has been building all along. She looks at Stick, who knew all along. Nobu hands her a sword and she takes it. Matt turns her sword swiftly and places it on her neck. And then the three of them, Matt, Elektra, and Stick, begin fighting the Hand together. Back at the crash site, Frank's the one behind it. He drags Ray into a shed while Karen begs Frank to spare him. Frank kills him with a single shot. Karen hears it from outside and cries quietly. Frank finds a room in the shed full of all sorts of weapons. His favorite tools are all around him. Matt chases after Nobu and they fight it off. Matt pushes him off a ledge and he crashes down. He's not dead yet. He wakes up surrounded by the Hand and ninjas and speaks.
Daredevil must die.
The last episode of Season 2 begins with Nobu giving the Hand a list of 20 targets across New York City, and instructing that all of them should be dealt with. Matt meets Elektra on a rooftop and convinces her to take down Nobu together. Foggy at a restaurant accepts a job offer from a no-nonsense and resourceful lawyer called Jerry Hogarth. He looks at the starting salary and it makes his brain briefly stop working. Jerry mentions that there is a future in defending people with enhanced abilities. Elektra and Matt go to see Potter. Elektra has her measurements taken and Potter gives Matt a new billy club that is adjustable and can be used for close-quarter combat. Pretty badass. Frank is back at his old home and he walks through the rooms he's not been in since his family was alive. He looks at the newspaper article that declared him dead. He goes into the garage and finds spray paint. He begins spraying on the vest. Matt meets up with Mahoney, who's injured from an encounter with someone powerful who wanted all of Daredevil's records. Moments later, the 20 targets from earlier are all rounded up and Karen is one of them. Matt arrives too late when Karen has already been taken by the Hand. While Karen and the other kidnapped people are being transported on a bus, she figures out that Turk Barrett's house arrest monitor is transmitting a location, but Barrett had his monitor disabled. A hand member named Tyler shoots a veteran, Jerry, for standing up for Karen. Karen convinces Barrett to switch the monitor back on, and he does it. Matt goes to a rooftop and panics since there are too many sounds, making it difficult for him to concentrate. Electra walks him through it slowly. He focuses on one sound and finds the bus. The hostages are transported to a building controlled by the Hand, and the police arrive courtesy of Barrett's signal. They're shortly killed by archers. That's too bad. The Hand goes to Barrett and they realize he has the monitor on. They take his leg and begin cutting it off. Matt jumps in through the window and takes them out. He finds Karen and tells her to run to safety as he deals with the Hand ninjas. Electra joins in afterward and helps Matt. Karen and the other hostages get out and find Mahoney with a squadron of police officers waiting. Karen tells Mahoney that it was a trap for Daredevil. Foggy arrives at the scene as well. Meanwhile, the Hand presses Matt and Electra up on the roof. Matt confesses to Electra that the only thing that made him feel alive was her. They get cornered and begin fighting the ninjas. Nobu also comes for them personally, and a tough battle begins. Matt and Electra fight off Nobu, but he overpowers them. He hits Matt so hard that his helmet falls off, and he drags him up and goes over for the kill. Electra jumps in front of the blade as it's about to kill Matt, and the blade cuts her instead. As she falls, Matt catches her, and Electra dies in Matt's arms. Poor Matt. His whole world just shattered. Nobu then orders the ninjas to kill Matt. Then, out of nowhere, gunshots are fired from a rooftop across the building. Frank Castle, in full Punisher armor, helps Matt take out some of the ninjas. Matt fights Nobu and sends him to the edge of the roof. Matt throws him down with a billy club. Nobu crashes on the ground. When he wakes up again, the guy doesn't want to stay dead. A moment after he wakes up, Stick appears behind him and cuts off his head. This time, he's dead for good. Finally. 1 month later, Matt and Stick are standing at Electra's grave. Matt wants to say something, but he has nothing to say. Stick asks if it was worth it to love her, and Matt says yes. At Josie's, Karen and Foggy sit together and drink. Karen says she's lonely, but Foggy tells her she has a friend in him. Karen then heads to the Bulletin, and Ellison finds her. This is all on Christmas Eve, by the way. No one's supposed to be working. Karen has writer's block, so Ellison leaves her a motivational gift, a bottle of scotch, and then she begins writing her story. Frank goes back to his old house, takes a CD named Micro, and sets the house on fire. He walks away as the house burns down, Joker style. Matt walks into what used to be Nelson and Murdock and finds Karen waiting. He pulls his helmet out of a bag and shows it to Karen. He tells her who he truly is.
I'm Daredevil.
He finally confesses he is Daredevil. Took him long enough. Across town, Electra's grave is being dug up. Her body is placed into the stone sarcophagus the one Nobu was preparing. The lid closes, and that's how we end Season 2 of Daredevil. The first episode of Season 3 begins with Matt being found in some rubble. He wakes up at St. Agnes's orphanage, the same place that raised him after his father died. A nun named Maggie Grace is tending to him. Matt's enhanced senses are all gone. For a man who has navigated the entire world through sound, smell, pressure, and heat, waking up without any senses is another kind of trauma. He's basically powerless. Back in Hell's Kitchen, Karen refuses to believe that Matt is gone. She's still paying rent on his apartment despite Matt not being around. We see a flashback of Matt explaining to Karen about his heightened abilities and how he is Daredevil. He talks to her about the suit and everything. Back to the present, Karen meets Foggy at Matt's apartment and asks him to help delay the eviction since Karen is behind in paying Matt's rent. Foggy agrees to help because, well, this is what Foggy does, helping his friends. Back at the orphanage, Lantham and Grace move Matt to the basement of Clinton Church. It's more private and quieter there, perfect for Matt. Matt then tells Grace that he has turned away from God, and that he would rather die as the devil than Matt Murdock. He questions religion after his bad experiences, and Grace concludes that his faith has gone down the drain. Bro needs to be saved ASAP. At Rikers Island, Wilson Fisk is having a bad time. The prison is getting to him in a way that no surface behavior will reveal. He meets his lawyers who tell him that Vanessa is being charged as an accessory and will not be allowed to enter US soil. Fisk is visibly angry. He orders them to leave and stares at his white prison wall. Some time passes and Matt's senses are slowly coming back, intermittently, like a signal that keeps cutting out. He is slowly getting back on track. He starts his training and Lantham brings in a boxer to spar with Matt. He seems to be back on track until his senses suddenly disappear again and he loses the fight. Matt losing the spar doesn't completely stop him. During the night, Matt makes a new black suit. He then hears a woman screaming. A woman named Neda Kazemi and her father are being kidnapped. Matt can't stop himself from helping them out, and he goes to their rescue and fights their kidnappers off. He also gets badly beaten by the kidnappers as well. Looks like a fair exchange. He manages to get the family out to safety, and he lies on the ground in pain as the cops appear. On the other side of town, Ray Nadim is introduced at a family birthday party. He's an FBI agent, a good father, and a caring husband. However, he is quietly drowning in financial debt because of his sister-in-law's cancer treatment. Nadim then goes to work and asks his supervisor, Tammy Hatley, for a performance review. She tells him that he's too vulnerable to get a promotion. Then she sends him to Rikers Island to talk to Wilson Fisk. He meets Fisk and thinks Fisk will just insult him, but to his shock, Fisk is willing to make a deal to save his one and only Vanessa. Seems the odds have aligned in Nadim's favor. In episode 2, we see that Fisk's deal with the FBI has already started paying dividends. One of Fisk's rival gangs, called the Albanian Syndicate, gets dismantled in a successful operation. Nadim is celebrated at the New York FBI field office for being the one in charge of the operation. He really feels good about himself. Back at Rikers, another inmate stabs Fisk in the workout room for being a snitch. Fisk nearly kills him, but he hesitates and drops the weight next to his head. The guards arrive and calm the situation. Matt drags himself from the fight in the previous episode to church. Grace finds him and tells him that she'll keep saying until he listens. Matt will die if he keeps doing this when he's not ready. Matt agrees with what Grace is saying, but that doesn't stop him. We go back to years ago, and young Matt was a pain in the ass. I'm talking about getting into fights with other kids, ignoring the nuns, and questioning religions. Lantum sits with him and tells him that anger is understandable, but it's not sustainable. He gives him some wise counsel. Back to the present, Nadim goes to see his boss Tammy about a problem. The other agents are trying to take over the Fisk assignment. Nadim defends himself by saying Fisk is only willing to talk to him, and his intel is too valuable to hand to someone else. Tammy warns him that running the case means the FBI will look into his finances. He agrees and gets the case. Meanwhile, Karen gets assigned to interview Neda Kazemi, whose father was the kidnapping victim. Nadim goes to Rikers Island to talk to Fisk, whose life is in danger after word got out that he was working with the feds. Matt then finds Father Lantum at the church and tells him he used to believe God gave him his gifts so he could hear prayers and answer them. He says he was deluding himself and that he will keep being the Daredevil. Lantum is keenly listening, not judging him. Karen goes to the hospital and talks to Kazemi. Karen then hears something that stops her cold.
A mask over his face.
Neda Kazemi and her father were saved by a man with a black mask. Daredevil, the one everyone thinks is dead. We briefly see Foggy attending a dinner party somewhere. He looks sharp and life seems to be going well for him. Meanwhile, Matt goes undercover and tries to save the day once again. He's not in his best shape and form, but he manages to whoop some bad guys' asses and report them to the police. Karen meets Foggy and tells him about the mask. Foggy denies it, saying Matt's dead and they should forget about him and move on. Karen's still convinced that Matt is alive somewhere. At the hospital, Matt goes to see Kazemi and tells her that the ones who were kidnapping them have been caught by the police. Ray Nadim takes Fisk from the prison cell to his house arrest location. Moments later, their convoy gets ambushed by the Albanian Syndicate survivors, who know Fisk is the one that sold them out. The ambush is intense, and most of the FBI agents are killed. As they are almost reaching where Fisk is, the attackers suddenly start dropping one by one. The man dropping them appears and points a gun at Fisk.
Don't move.
His name is Benjamin Poindexter. He's an FBI agent as well, but just not any normal agent. He is the most dangerous shooter. Meanwhile, Matt walks out of the hospital where the wounded FBI agents are being brought. He hears emergency calls and Wilson Fisk's name being mentioned, that he was taken out of prison by the FBI. In episode 3, Fisk is taken to the Presidential Hotel, and when he asks about Vanessa, he's told that she's missing. Karen is having dinner with Ellison and his family. She refuses to be taken off the Daredevil story. On the other side, Foggy has nightmares about Matt being dead. He wakes up next to Marcy Stahl, who tells him that whatever happened to Matt is not his fault. He knows that, but he can't stop thinking about it. He looks at his phone and sees the headlines that Fisk is out, and his nightmare comes to life. The next day, we see Fisk's new home become a hotspot for protesters who are calling for his lockup. Matt walks into the Presidential Hotel where Fisk is. He's in his civilian clothes and with a cane. His mind is playing games on him, showing him hallucinations of Fisk in the background, mocking and baiting him. Karen is present at the protest as well, trying to get answers from Nadim about why Fisk is being held in a $20 million penthouse. Fisk's hallucinations keep tormenting Matt as he sneaks into the hotel. Meanwhile, the real Fisk is staring at a blank wall as usual, deep in thought. His lawyers come and tell him that Vanessa is being moved every 72 hours to avoid being tracked. Fisk commands them to move her somewhere closer. Foggy heads to Blake Tower's office to demand answers about how Fisk got out. Towers says he objected, but Foggy accuses him of prioritizing his re-election over Fisk's victims. This angers Blake and he kicks him out. Back at the hotel, Fisk is having dinner under the protection of Poindexter. Fisk notices him and offers condolences for the agents who died while protecting him. Poindexter is not interested in small talk, but Fisk continues talking anyway. He tries to initiate a conversation, but Poindexter does not reply. Poindexter then goes to talk to a bureau psychologist called Myman. Poindexter is on administrative leave because he used lethal force during the convoy attack. Poindexter mentions a woman named Julie Barnes and how she's always there for him. Myman tells him to go see her since it'll do him good. Elsewhere, Matt corners Donovan for information regarding Fisk getting out of prison. He tells him the reason was Vanessa. FBI agents close in on his position and Matt, almost like a ninja, sneaks past them and fights off a couple of them. Fisk's hallucination compliments him for beating up an agent. Weird. Matt heads back to the church and talks to Grace about Fisk being out of prison. She warns him to be careful not to become the very monster he hates. Afterwards, Foggy is drinking at a bar when he hears his name being whispered behind him. He looks back and sees Matt, alive and well. He hugs him, the kind of hug that happens to people who thought they would never see each other again. Matt tells Foggy that this is not a return. He came to warn him and Karen to stay away from Fisk. He apologizes for putting them in danger and walks away. Turns out Matt stole Foggy's bar association ID on the way out. At the penthouse, Donovan tells Fisk that Daredevil is back. The next episode starts with Poindexter searching for Fisk's apartment, a show of dominance that he has his eyes on him. Matt is busy preparing for a busy day, and he gets out of the house and enters a taxi. Foggy tells Marcy about Matt's return and does not sleep. He rants to her about how Matt just shows up and then disappears out of nowhere. Marcy calms him down, and just as he's about to go out, he asks her if she's seen his wallet. Turns out his wallet is in Matt's hands, and he's using it to impersonate Foggy to enter Rikers Island. Matt meets with his old client named Michael Kemp. He needs an introduction to the Albanian syndicate, particularly a man named Vic Yusefi. He needs to know why Fisk used the Albanians to engineer his escape. Kemp punches him to maintain his own cover. Matt is then taken to the infirmary for treatment. Meanwhile, Karen's busy following the money trail. The presidential hotel was purchased through a chain of shell companies, all represented by Donovan and partners. Foggy comes in and tells her that Matt is alive. They head to his apartment and he's not there. Foggy tells her that Matt is no longer the same person they used to know. Meanwhile, back at the infirmary, a man dressed up as a nurse attacks Matt. Matt fights him off, but he's injected with a sedative. And then the phone rings. It's Fisk, who's been watching him through the cameras. He tells Matt how he can't forgive him for threatening Vanessa. The cell doors open and every inmate in the block floods the corridor. Matt, fighting off a sedative, punches his way through a full-scale prison riot while barely able to stand. He sees two guards and he thinks he's safe. Too bad for him, he proceeds to fight off the fake guards. Moments later, the Albanians get to Matt before the rest of the guards do. Yusefi confronts Matt as to why he came looking for him. Matt responds that he wants Fisk in a cell. Also, it turns out Yusefi's cousin died in Fisk's convoy, and he tells Matt that Fisk staged the prison attack on himself. The inmate who did it was quietly released afterwards, so the FBI transfer was manufactured, and a man named Jasper Evans is the only one who can prove it. Matt is then escorted out of the prison by one of Yusefi's men. Foggy shows up at the police union meeting and does something that takes genuine nerve. He asks for the floor and gives a speech about Blake Towers' inaction on Fisk. Mahoney allows him to speak, and Foggy announces he's running for district attorney and vows to put Fisk behind bars. Whoa. Karen is still chasing after the money trail. She heads to Ellison's house that night, and she's told to wait until the next day. Meanwhile, at Fisk's penthouse, Fisk is being questioned about the night of the ambush. He defends Poindexter and says he only acted in self-defense. Fisk is trying to be in good favor with Poindexter, but Poindexter is proving to be stubborn and uncooperative. Matt wakes up in a cab and discovers the man in the driver's seat isn't the man who picked him up. The driver jumps out and lets the car drive over the edge of the pier and sink into the water. Episode 5 starts off with Matt's cab being pulled out of the water with no body found. Fisk gets the news while he's watching the footage of Matt fighting at Rikers Island. Donovan says that there's no way a blind man can survive drowning. Fisk's cooperation has earned him the return of his personal belongings. In exchange for this, Fisk tells the FBI that he's hired a criminal on his behalf who does the dirty work for him. Fisk gives Nadim a name, Matt Murdock. Fisk claims he's working for him and helps him launder money and bribe officials. Fisk wants Matt gone. The FBI raids Matt's home and only finds wet clothes and nothing else. Elsewhere, Karen gets stopped by the feds as she's walking. She gets pulled in for questioning. She's then taken to Matt's apartment and asked if she knows any reason for Matt to be in hiding. She defends Matt, of course. Nadim brings up Confederate Global Investments, the company used by Fisk to launder money. He shows Karen a photo of James Wesley. She tells Nadim that Fisk is playing him from the very beginning. Nadim has no evidence on Karen, so he watches her leave without arrest. Now let's talk about Benjamin Poindexter. Fisk has been reading his file, and what he found is beyond extraordinary. Poindexter killed his baseball coach in a fit of rage as a child. He was assigned to therapy with a psychiatrist named Eileen Mercer, who became his anchor and voice that kept him sane. He once worked at a suicide prevention center and instructed a caller to kill his abusive stepfather. Diabolical! Fisk goes through all his files and is intrigued by Poindexter. He wants him to be the new face of Daredevil in New York City.
The public is easily distracted. The city needs a new villain.
Foggy's having a campaign session, and Nadim interrupts him with a question about Matt. Foggy responds with what he knows, and Nadim asks him about his ID that Matt used to enter the prison and tries to intimidate him. Foggy stands his ground and tells him to leave. Poindexter is catching up with a woman named Julie Barnes, who worked for him at a suicide prevention center. They share a drink, and then Poindexter accidentally reveals private details about her that she hadn't told him. This freaks her out, and Julie leaves the hotel. Karen and Foggy meet up, and Karen tells him about Wesley. Karen confesses to Foggy that she killed Wesley and the feds might frame Matt for the murder, something that makes her extremely worried. In the final scene, we see Matt coming into his apartment, soaking wet after escaping the drowning car a while back. All along, he had been hiding on the roof of the apartment, listening to the police radio saying he was an armed and dangerous suspect. The following episode starts with Karen in her apartment, acting paranoid. We see flashbacks of her conversation with Foggy, who says that it would look like Karen shot Wesley in self-defense. Karen says she shot him 7 times. Back in the apartment, Matt enters the house through the window and greets her. Matt asks for Karen's help in finding Jasper Evans, the man who shanked Fisk in prison. She refuses initially, but she decides to help anyway. Meanwhile, Poindexter is having nightmares about the previous night with Julie. Soon enough, Karen briefs Foggy about Jasper Evans. Foggy agrees to help Matt, despite them falling out. Poindexter storms into Fisk's hotel and confronts him about Julie. He's worked out that Fisk hired her to destroy him. Fisk remains quiet and talks about his own father. He talks to Poindexter as if he sees him, the real him. Karen visits Clinton Church looking for Matt. Maggie Grace is here. Grace knows that Karen knows that Matt is Daredevil. They both know. Karen asks about Matt's childhood, and Grace answers, giving her truthful answers. Meanwhile, Poindexter is busy battling his demons after being given work leave due to his unstable mental health. Karen goes undercover as a drug buyer to look for Jasper Evans. She finds Jasper, and just as he's about to attack her, Matt swoops in and saves Karen. They force Jasper to tell the truth that would put Fisk in prison for good. Karen and Foggy bring Evans to the New York Bulletin building with Ellison as a witness. Evans is ready to testify. Suddenly, the lights go out and an unlikely visitor walks through the front door, killing people on his way.
I said let go.
Understood.
Poindexter is wearing the full Daredevil suit. He massacres the Bulletin office using all sorts of available weapons. He throws a weapon at Foggy and Matt catches it. He asks Poindexter who he is, and he answers,
I'm Daredevil.
They begin fighting, and this is the first time Matt faces someone wearing his own suit. Poindexter beats the hell out of Matt. He enters the room where Karen and Foggy have barricaded themselves, and he shoots Jasper. He greets Karen and then walks off. The FBI arrives and tries to arrest Poindexter. Wrong move. He beats them up and escapes. Nadim walks into the building and sees the massacre that just happened. He goes to Karen, who's beyond shocked. Next to her, Jasper is lying dead. They ask who did this, and Nadim responds that it was Daredevil. In this episode, Fisk is winning the news war. Every news outlet in New York is running the Bulletin massacre as an attack by Daredevil. Fisk smiles as his plan is all working out. Matt heads back to the Clinton Church with new wounds and the problem of being the man the FBI is now hunting for crimes committed by someone wearing his own suit. Nadim brings in Karen and Foggy for the investigation. Karen tells him flat out that the man who attacked the Bulletin was not Daredevil, because Daredevil doesn't kill. Jasper Evans was killed because he had evidence against Fisk. Nadim thinks that they're lying and presses them further. They get angry and head out. Matt goes to Potter and asks him about the other Daredevil suit. Potter says he made the suit because Fisk threatened his girlfriend, Betsy, so he had no other option. Meanwhile, Nadim visits Warden Riggle regarding Jasper Evans, who was supposed to be in Rikers but ended up dead at the Bulletin. Riggle doesn't answer and immediately demands a lawyer. Karen visits Ellison at the hospital and he tells her to write what she knows about Daredevil and his connection to Fisk. Karen refuses and Ellison is mad at her and tells her to clear her desk if she doesn't want to say what she's hiding. At the same time, Potter takes Matt to his other workshop where he traps him as part of Fisk's arrangement. Matt manages to escape and they begin fighting. Matt senses the FBI tactical unit on the way, and Potter says they were to come when Matt had the suit on. Fisk wanted to frame him for being Daredevil, the evil one, that is. Matt manages to escape and the FBI arrive and take in Potter instead. Nadim visits Fisk, hoping to get some information about Jasper Evans, but Fisk gives him nothing. Matt meets Betsy and tells her to leave town if she wants to live. Meanwhile, Foggy's busy looking at a bunch of files, and he finally gets an idea of what Fisk is up to. Nadim gets home and his family surprises him after getting a promotion for handling the Albanian syndicate. It gave him good points at work. He celebrates with his family, and as he heads to the basement to look for something, Matt approaches him. He convinces him that he is not the one who attacked the bulletin, and the one who did is in the FBI. This makes Nadim more interested, and he tells Matt to keep talking. In episode 8, Poindexter goes back home, listens to the voicemail that calms him down, and begins cleaning his mess of a house. Nadim goes to work and immediately begins to connect the dots on who the FBI agent / fake Daredevil is. Outside his home, Poindexter stops Julie from her morning run and apologizes for his behavior earlier. He requests that they meet up again. Meanwhile, Nadim meets Matt and says that he'll give up the fake Daredevil's identity if Matt promises not to hurt him. He agrees, and Nadim names Poindexter. Back with Poindexter, he explains to Julie that the FBI used him as a scapegoat and the system that kept his mind in order is gone. She agrees to help him, and Poindexter feels relieved that he finally has help. He clearly needed it, considering his demons were almost eating him alive. Foggy presents his theory to Karen. Fisk is using the FBI to eliminate criminal rivals and become the city's only protection racket. Also, there's a clause in his house arrest agreement that any crimes committed before the federal deal was signed are still prosecutable, including the murder of his father. Karen suggests that they go public with Fisk's house arrest violations, and Foggy says he'll make a statement as a DA candidate. Solid plan. Nadim has a meeting arranged to distract Poindexter regarding his position at the bureau. Matt and Nadim go to search his apartment. They open his safe and don't find the suit, only Eileen Mercer's therapy tapes. Matt takes them, and then Poindexter arrives home early. He immediately suspects someone has entered his home. He shoots at Matt and Nadim, wounding Nadim. The two manage to make a run for it, and the police arrive before Poindexter can pursue them. Whew, that was close. Meanwhile, Foggy goes band for band with Blake Tower. He accuses him of aiding Fisk and using the government as his own personal army. They go on with each other until Foggy notices that Karen is not in attendance. He quickly leaves the debate, making Blake Tower and the audience confused. He was in a flow state and then decided to abandon the debate? Karen is at the presidential hotel meeting with Fisk. She plans to provoke him into saying something that can be used against him. Get him angry enough to slip, you know? She begins with his father's murder, about his pattern of violence, and Fisk does not slip. He maintains composure. Karen presses further by telling him she's the one who killed Wesley, and Fisk angrily gets up but doesn't do anything. The feds arrive and escort Karen outside, and Foggy is waiting for her outside. Meanwhile, Poindexter meets with Fisk. Poindexter tells him Nadim knows about his involvement as Daredevil. Fisk tells him not to worry about it since all will be handled. R.I.P. to Nadim in advance, man. He embarrasses Poindexter like a father embarrassing his son. He even calls him Dex, a cute little nickname. Matt returns to the church that night. He starts training, and his enhanced hearing catches Grace praying. He accidentally catches something he was not meant to hear.
Our son is too much like you, Jack.
Matt is completely shocked to hear that Grace is his mother. In episode 9, Matt finds Father Lantom at a bar and confronts him about why he didn't tell him that Grace Maggie was his mother. Lantom had known the secret all along. He explains to Matt how it happened. We then get a flashback of Maggie meeting Jack Murdock at a boxing match. They fell in love, and well, one thing led to another, and they had Matt. After he was born, Grace suffered postpartum depression so severe that she felt her child was in danger. So she went back to the church, and Lantom helped her stay. She thought Matt was better off not knowing the truth. Back to the present, Nadim has decided to go on record, and he goes to a formal interview with Agent Wynn and Tammy Hatley. He states on record that Fisk is behind a criminal conspiracy that has corrupted the FBI. He names Poindexter as the bulletin killer, producing his gunshot wound as evidence. He's placed on leave and surrenders his gun and badge. Then Tammy takes out her gun and shoots Agent Wynn twice. Nadim is shocked, and Tammy tells him who his boss is now.
I'm not your boss anymore. Wilson Fisk is.
Yep, his boss is now the very man he hates, Wilson Fisk. Meanwhile, Karen is planning to run. Foggy talks her down with the logic that public visibility is the best protection. She doesn't accept it though. Foggy hugs her and says that they'll get through it. Meanwhile, Lantum goes to tell Grace that Matt knows she is his mother. She breaks down, weeping that the secret is finally out. Then Matt goes to Fogwell's gym and begins having a conversation with the hallucination of his father. His father tells him he finally knows the truth. Meanwhile, at Nadim's home, Nadim gets an unexpected visitor, Poindexter. They go outside to talk, and Dex tells Nadim that Fisk wants Daredevil. Nadim says he doesn't know, but Dex tells him to find out. We get back to Foggy, whose speech is going viral across New York. The speech was filmed and shared, which garnered him wide support. He has a real shot at winning. Back at the gym, Matt is still talking to his father's hallucination. He tells him that he's going to kill Fisk. He says it plainly, like something he's decided, and there's no going back. Meanwhile, Karen goes to meet Grace. Grace tells her that Matt knows she is his mother. Karen tells Grace that she's running away and wants to warn Matt before she goes. Grace offers to hide her in the church. Back at the bureau, Dex is reinstated to his job, and Nadim watches everything with a side eye. At the same time, we see Foggy is enjoying time with his family when his brother Theo calls him aside. He tells him that the business has been getting help from Red Lion National Bank. They want Foggy to apologize, or else they'll charge the Nelson family with fraud. All of them. Back at the bureau, Tammy assembles all of the corrupt FBI agents and tells them that Fisk has asked them to start rounding up rival crime bosses. For the first time, we see the full scope of what Fisk has built, law enforcement that operates on his behalf, eliminating his competition. They referred to him with a code name, Kingpin. Bro loves himself so much. Fisk rounds up all the gangsters of New York and then uses Nadim to set a trap for Matt. Matt, who is still having hallucinations, takes the bait and heads over to the address sent by Nadim. He enters and asks the lady watching over the security cameras when Fisk will be back. He then hears police radio mentioning the church where Karen is hiding. Matt asks her what he wants with Karen. She responds with shocking words. Fisk wants to kill her. Episode 10 begins with a flashback. The year is 2004 in Vermont. We see Karen before she came to New York. She's young, reckless, using drugs and selling them with her goth boyfriend Todd. She was a wild one, huh? Karen is working at their family's diner together with her brother Kevin and father Paxton. Then her brother Kevin re-enrolls Karen back into college. She's furious about it. Paxton calls a family dinner to celebrate, but she doesn't want to go because she fears the diner will collapse without her presence. She tells Paxton how her mom hated the diner, and she only stayed because she loved her father. Later that night, Karen leaves with Todd. Kevin follows and stops them, and he tells Todd to stay away from his sister, and then they begin fighting. Karen stops the fight by shooting Todd in the shoulder. Kevin and Karen get in the car and drive away. She's drunk, high, and furious. She yells at Kevin, and as she's distracted, she veers off the road and her car goes off the edge. Her brother Kevin sadly dies in the car accident. Her father blames her for her brother's death and tells her to leave and never come back. We go back to the present, and Karen is hiding in the Clinton church. Father Lantum finds her sitting alone and sits with her. She asks for advice, and he tells her about Matt blaming him for his choices. He says people who have done wrong things aren't beyond redemption. Meanwhile, Fisk, aka Kingpin, learns from his FBI contacts that Karen is at the church. He tells Dex to go and kill her in revenge for the death of Wesley. On the other side, Matt is very close to getting into Kingpin's suite. He has two options: go for Fisk now or go save Karen. Decisions. Bro doesn't have much time left, because Dex is already at the church in search of Karen. He hits some of the congregates until Karen surrenders herself at last. Just in time, Matt jumps in front of her and begins fighting with Dex. Dex is faster and beats Matt up, and he reaches where Karen is and throws the billy club at her. Father Lantum steps in front of it and is hit. Karen lets out a scream, and Matt jumps at Dex with everything he's got. They fight brutally, but Matt is no match for Dex. Dex beats him up, and just as he's about to finish off Matt, Karen hits Dex, and he falls down the nave. Matt says he can't let Dex leave. Karen looks down only to find Dex gone. She turns and leans over to Matt, who's bleeding. Episode 11 starts off with Dex coming back to the church with Nadim and ordering an entire lockdown. He wants to finish what he started. NYPD and FBI secure the area. In the church, Matt and Karen are hiding quietly in the crypt. Grace is above them, trying to buy them time by walking agents in the wrong direction. She takes them to the crypt, but misleads them. Smart woman. Karen and Matt get out of the tomb they were hiding in and begin talking. Karen tells Matt about his conversation with Fisk. She also talked about the night her brother Kevin died. She says once you cross the line of killing someone, there's no going back. Matt tells her that his decision to kill Fisk is final. It's the only way. Meanwhile, Fisk holds a press conference outside the presidential hotel. He tells the crowd and the cameras and all of New York City that he was made a scapegoat by people who feared change. He blames Daredevil for the Bulletin Massacre. He says Daredevil is the true public enemy since he's going around killing people. Fisk is very good at making people believe what he wants them to. Back at the church, Grace goes to check in on Matt and Karen. She offers them some clothes and tells them to clean up. Meanwhile, Theo brings Foggy the statement he's supposed to make as an apology to Fisk. He refuses to do it. His brother tries to convince him to do it, but he rethinks it. He receives a phone call and answers it. It's Matt on the phone. Meanwhile, Fisk has the ankle monitor removed, and he is now a free man. He tells Donovan there's only one thing left to do. He wants his favorite painting back. Back at the church, Foggy arrives and is ready to try the law one more time. He surrenders Karen Page to the NYPD for her safety. Nadim and Dex are visibly angry. Matt is on the rooftop listening to everything. On the other side of town, Fisk goes on a side quest to meet the woman with his favorite painting, Esther Falb. He explains the importance of the painting to her, which she counters with her own deeper importance. Fisk listens to all of it and tells her to keep it since Vanessa would have wanted her to keep it. If Vanessa was not in the picture, Fisk would have easily shot the woman and taken the painting. Love definitely changes people. Back at the church, Matt meets up with Karen and Foggy. Foggy already lays out a plan for them. The plan basically entails working together, the three of them, just like before. Sounds like a good plan to me. Meanwhile, Fisk learns that Karen is still alive under NYPD custody. He lashes out at the guy next to him and kills him. Bro and his anger issues. Oh. Back at Nadim's house, Fisk sends people to punish him for letting Karen go. Nadim shoots a couple of them and then Matt swoops in to help him finish the rest. Nadim points a gun at him, but Matt assures him that he's not there to kill him. As a gesture of trust, Matt removes his mask and Nadim stares at his face.
So I owe you one.
Episode 12 starts off by giving us the moment we all have been waiting for.
Hello, Wilson.
After so long, Wilson Fisk and Vanessa reunite. What a lovely scene. He's been waiting for this moment since Rikers. Meanwhile, Matt and Foggy make Nadim their client. They take Nadim to Mahoney's mother's house and hide his family there. Matt and Foggy tell Nadim to hire them as his attorneys at law. He then sees Fisk taking Vanessa to his newly acquired penthouse. He really loves Vanessa and wants her to be as comfortable as possible. Meanwhile, Matt and Foggy take Nadim to Fogwell's gym to work on his testimony. Nadim is in the state of a man who has done terrible things and is now about to stand in front of a judge and admit them. Foggy then meets up with Blake and offers him a deal. He would step down in his favor in exchange for an hour of his time with his client, Nadim. Blake accepts. He meets up with Matt and Nadim, who tell him everything he knows about Fisk. Nadim agrees to take a 5-year prison term for his involvement in the crimes. Back at the penthouse, Fisk prepares breakfast for Vanessa, who says she's lonely despite being reunited with Fisk. Then Fisk receives news that Nadim intends to testify against him. Bro is not happy at all. Then Dex returns the rabbit in a Snowstorm painting to Vanessa. She takes a closer look at the painting and notices blood on the side. She understands what's been done and thanks Dex for it. Meanwhile, Matt and Nadim are on their way to testify. They suddenly get ambushed by armed men and they fight them off, looking for a way to escape. They manage to do a combination of sneaking and fighting the armed men until they finally get to safety. Nadim finally goes to testify and he tells the grand jury everything. Matt and Foggy are waiting for him outside. Then Matt senses something has gone horribly wrong. Fisk has gotten to the jurors. The testimony was dismissed. Reporters outside accuse Karen of fabricating the story for the readership, and she walks away angrily. As they're taking a breather in the washroom, Nadim is very scared for his family. He knocks out Foggy, then leaves hurriedly. Back at the penthouse, Vanessa wants to be fully involved in Fisk's life, both clean and dirty work. She wants to be his gangster queen. Back at Nadim's house, Nadim decides to make a video for his wife, Seema, and his daughter, Sammy. He knows his fate. Dex is in the backyard. Meanwhile, back at the penthouse, Fisk takes Vanessa to his surveillance room. He gives her the seat, and Vanessa has finally been included in Fisk's empire. At Nadim's house, Nadim walks outside and finds Dex waiting for him. His time's up. He tells Dex he doesn't have to do this, and Dex says he feels more alive thanks to Fisk, and then shoots Nadim in the head. Mahoney calls Foggy and tells him about Nadim's death. Matt hears the call and walks away, saying that they tried Foggy's way. Now it's time to try Matt's way. And guess what's Matt's way? Putting an end to Fisk. The final episode begins with Daredevil grabbing a man named Felix Manning off the streets and forcing him to give him some information. Meanwhile, Fisk has increased security at the hotel in preparation for something big, his luxurious wedding. Fisk is marrying Vanessa in a public event to cement his image as a legitimate future in New York. Everyone in the city will be watching. Back in the streets, Matt is still torturing information out of Manning. Manning tells Matt something else, that he knows about Julie Barnes. Foggy goes to meet Mahoney and tells him that somebody is going to kill Fisk. Mahoney is rejoicing, but Foggy tells him that if he dies, they would not be able to get the other people involved in his crime web. Foggy then gets summoned by the FBI. He goes in and later sees Mrs. Nadim, who gives Foggy a phone containing Nadim's last recorded video before his death. She does that very discreetly since they're being closely monitored. Matt then calls Dex using Manning's phone and tells him that Fisk had Julie killed. Matt gives Dex the address and hangs up. Foggy then meets up with Karen and together they view Nadim's video. Before he died, he recorded a dying declaration, which is admissible in court specifically because a person who knows they're dying has diminished incentive to lie. In the video, Nadim names all personnel involved with Fisk, every agent who aided in any crime. It's basically the silver bullet to put an end to Fisk. During the night, Dex goes to the warehouse directed by Matt. He goes into a freezer and sees Julie Barnes' dead body. He is in a state of shock and breaks down. Matt calls him and Dex vows to kill him. Matt tells him how Fisk is setting him up and tells him that Fisk is getting married tonight. He doesn't deserve a happy ending. Dex is now more confused than ever. Meanwhile, the wedding of the gangster is underway, with Fisk and Vanessa kissing each other, Bonnie and Clyde type of love. As they're dancing gracefully, Karen releases Nadim's dying testimony online and it goes viral everywhere. Dex crashes the wedding in full Daredevil red suit. He beats the crap out of all the other agents and wants to get to Fisk. At the hallway, Matt and Fisk meet eye to eye again and they attack each other viciously. Dex arrives as well and the three battle it out. Fisk breaks Dex's spine and he falls. He does not get up. He's done for. Matt now battles it out with Fisk. Matt beats the hell out of Fisk until his wife shouts at him to stop. Matt stops and decides to make a deal with Fisk. If he comes after Matt's loved ones, he will prove Vanessa ordered the killing of Nadim, and she will rot in prison. Fisk, having a weakness for Vanessa, agrees to take the deal to save her. Matt runs away as the police officers come in and arrest Fisk. Dex is lying on the ground paralyzed. Mahoney looks at the real Daredevil and points him to his officers. The one lying on the ground isn't the real Daredevil. Fisk and Vanessa are escorted to the police cars and driven away. Back at Lantum's funeral, Matt speaks some loving words about the late father, how he showed him to be brave without armor. He says plenty of good things about him. The funeral is over and Matt, Karen, Foggy, and Marcy are talking outside. Foggy drops out of the DA race and publicly endorses Blake Tower. On the other side of town, Nelson's Meats, the meat store owned by the Nelson family, will be clear when Blake takes down Red Lion National Bank. Theo takes over the shop and the three, Matt, Foggy, and Karen, enjoy dinner together. Foggy pulls out a napkin and draws something on it. Nelson, Murdock, and Page, a new name for their law firm. At the final scene, we see Poindexter getting into surgery. His shattered spine gets replaced with a cogmium steel framework. He regains consciousness during the surgery and opens his eyes wide. And that's how we end the season. Alrighty, so you finally made it through the original Daredevil series. 3 seasons and one of the best villain arcs on television. Congrats! Now we're stepping into Daredevil Born Again. This show drops our main character into a brand new world. Fisk is no longer hiding in the shadows. He's now in the open, pursuing his political ambitions. It's the same city, same rivalry, but different rules, so buckle up and let's get right into it. Episode 1 begins with Matt, Foggy, and Karen at Josie's bar having a drink. It's just a normal, ordinary night filled with joy and laughter. We see Nelson talking business with a lawyer named Kristen McDuffie. A retired cop named Cherry is celebrating that his pension finally came. Everyone's in good spirits here. Then Foggy gets a call from a man named Benny Cafaro, a client he is protecting, who's suddenly scared that someone found his address and is coming to kill him. Matt, with his super hearing, overhears the conversation as Benny is killed on call. Matt quickly suits up and rushes there, and as Benny's dying, he apologizes to Foggy on the phone for telling the killer where to find him. Matt hears this and immediately turns around. He rushes to where Foggy is, but he's not fast enough. Foggy is shot in the chest right in front of Karen. He falls down bleeding. Damn, what a way to start us off. Moments later, Poindexter arrives and throws smoke in the whole bar, sending people into panic mode. He faces off with Matt in a brutal fight. Meanwhile, Karen is kneeling on the floor, putting pressure on Foggy's chest to stop the bleeding. Matt and Dex battle it out as they break through walls and stab each other endlessly. Matt hears Karen crying, and Foggy takes his last breath and dies. Matt becomes angry and throws Dex off the building, and he hits the ground hard, but he doesn't die. And that is the night everything changed. Nelson Foggy, Matt's best friend, is no more. Fast forward to 1 year later, the show introduces us to the characters and who they have become without each other. They're going through the separation arc. Matt started a new firm together with Kirsten. Also, there's Cherry, who's working as their investigator. On the other side, Fisk has been very busy, real busy. He's been stepping back from the criminal empire, letting his wife Vanessa run it while he rebuilds himself publicly. He collected enough signatures to run for the mayoral race. Meanwhile, Matt heads to court and testifies at Dex's sentencing hearing. Dex is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Afterwards, Matt and Karen catch up after a while without seeing each other. They've been on and off in communicating between them, so they're kinda mad at each other, or still in love. Back at home, Fisk goes on live television and announces his candidacy for mayor of New York. Matt is visibly frustrated. As Matt is walking, he overhears people on the street debating whether to support Fisk. People are 50-50. There are exhausted New Yorkers who know his past and others who are willing to overlook it, but Matt knows who Fisk truly is. Ben McDuffie sets up Matt on an accidental blind date with a therapist named Heather Glenn. He's annoyed at first, but then he becomes charmed. He didn't expect it to go so well. Matt, who's been a disaster in having normal human relationships since approximately birth, might be meeting someone who actually understands him. Meanwhile, Cherry looks into Fisk's campaign finances. Everything is legitimate, his money is clean and legal, but he knows Fisk very well. He's done a good job cleaning up after himself. He tells Cherry that if Fisk gets elected, maybe he's the mayor the city deserves. Later that day, Matt meets Fisk at a diner. They sit across from each other and have a conversation without breaking each other's bones for once. Fisk says he kept the deal they made and had nothing to do with Foggy's death. Fisk asks Matt why he stopped being Daredevil, and he responds that after Foggy died, he almost killed Dex. Fisk warns him that when he becomes mayor, he'll get rid of all vigilantes across the city and hopes Matt won't be caught in the crossfire. Later on, Matt goes on a second date with Glenn when the news breaks out. Fisk has won the election. Matt tells her he has a history with the man who just became the new mayor of New York. On the streets, Fisk's supporters celebrate his victory, and others are even drawing murals of him on the walls. Fisk then goes up to a rooftop to talk to Vanessa. He tells her that he knows about her affair with a guy named Adam. Vanessa tells him not to kill Adam, which Fisk responds by saying that he's not that kind of man anymore. Down below, people continue celebrating in the streets as Matt walks among them. The second episode begins with Fisk in his office, delivering a speech to the people of New York. He really wants to get rid of all masked vigilantes like Spider-Man and Daredevil. Matt hears people's opinions about him across the city. People really love him. Down at the subway, a man named Hector Ayala sees another young man named Nicky Torres getting beaten up by two men. He steps in to help, and the two men turn out to be cops. A fight breaks out, and one of them falls down on the rails and gets crushed by a train. Turns out the crushed guy was a cop as well. Another police officer named Connor Powell arrests Hector for killing a police officer. Whoa, a lot is happening here. Meanwhile, Matt is at the 15th precinct for work when he hears Hector being roughed up in the interrogation room. He walks in and offers to represent him. Hector says he can't afford him, but Matt insists. Hector's story seems clean on the surface. All he did was try and help out, then things went sideways. On the other side of town, Fisk gets stuck in traffic on the way to a meeting. He gets out of the car and there's a huge hole in the road. He calls the Department of Transportation foreman over, tells him to fill a hole ASAP, and grants him approval. The whole thing gets filmed. It's perfect optics for Fisk, the man who gets things done. His campaign advisor, Sheila Rivera, approves of Fisk's actions. Meanwhile, Matt goes to the courtroom to represent Hector. The hearing is short and brutal. Killing a police officer is clearly not a good look. His bail is denied, and the case ends, just like that. Back in the mayor's office, Fisk meets up with a young lady named Bibi, who's Ben Urich's niece. She asks Fisk rather personal questions, which Fisk does not feel comfortable answering. Fisk sees the fire in her and wants to use it to his advantage. Meanwhile, Fisk's police commissioner, Phil Gallo, is a man who hates Fisk with a passion, a certified hater. He meets up with Fisk after a funeral and tells him that his wish is to make Fisk's term shorter than a month. Later that night, Cherry and Kirsten go to Hector's home to talk to his wife. Cherry heads to a closet and finds a white tiger's suit. Matt goes to Riker Island to have a chat with Hector about being a vigilante. Representing a vigilante in the middle of Fisk's anti-vigilante administration is the worst possible case ever. The next day, Phil Gallo goes to Fisk's office to submit his retirement notice. Fisk shows him a picture of his family and says that he will stay with zero pay increase. He has Phil by his neck, so bro has no option but to stay. Meanwhile, Matt wins the motion to keep Hector's white tiger identity out of the court record. One small victory. He then begins trailing Powell, who's also hunting for Torres, and locates the witness first. Matt then receives a call that Glenn will have to rain check their dates since she's meeting a new client. Guess who her new clients are?
Allow me to introduce Mayor and Mrs. Fisk.
Yep, the Fisks are coming to therapy. Wow. At Glenn's office, Fisk and Vanessa let it all out at the therapy session. Meanwhile, Matt trails Torres and finds himself in an apartment with 2 police officers sent to kill his witness. He tells Torres to escape as he deals with the cops. The 2 men enter the apartment and start beating Matt up. They want to shoot him, and that's when Matt snaps. He beats the 2 men up thoroughly, and I'm talking proper ass whooping. The episode ends with Matt letting out a loud scream after knocking them out. The 3rd episode begins with Matt visiting Hector and promising him he will be free. When we head over to Fisk having dinner with Vanessa, Sheila comes in and tells them that there's a double murder in Red Hook Port. Vanessa tells Fisk that the gangs are all killing each other because neither of them is there. Fisk calls them rats and says let them kill each other. Later that day, the trial of Hector Ayala is in progress. Powell takes the stand and lies completely. Torres doesn't appear anywhere in the testimony at all. Cherry and a man named Forrest Tam get Torres to the courthouse while Powell's people try to intercept him. Torres gets to the stand and tells the court he wasn't there that night. Matt tried to push him further, but the judge shuts Matt down. Torres has been compromised as a witness. Damn. On the other side of town, our partners in crime, Fisk and Vanessa, are waiting to start their therapy session. Back in the court without Torres, Matt needs a different approach. He asks Hector to testify, then mid-testimony he does something that Cooper had specifically ruled against. Matt takes out the white tiger mask and asks Hector if he is the white tiger. The judge calls for a recess and chews Matt out in the chambers. Matt says his evidence was tampered with and Hector's identity as White Tiger is evidence of his good character. Cooper has no choice but to continue. Matt goes to visit Hector in the cell and tells him that when he's acquitted, he can no longer put on the suit and be White Tiger. Back in the courtroom, they bring in civilians and police officers to give their statements. People who White Tiger helped. People who saw Hector choose to intervene instead of walking away. The jury hears all their accounts. Hochberg argues that good deeds don't cancel out killing a police officer in cold blood. Afterwards, the jury makes its decision. Hector is found not guilty on all 3 counts. Finally, Hector is now a free man. Meanwhile, Fisk was following the news of Hector's acquittal and is visibly angry about it. He calls for Bibi, and Fisk tells her that the trial was a miscarriage of justice. He also adds that vigilantes are a threat he takes seriously. As Fisk pours out his hatred for vigilantes to Bibi, on the other side of town we see Hector putting on the White Tiger suit. He's going back to the streets after surviving the trial. Moments later, a man with the Punisher suit shoots him point blank in the head and calmly walks away. Episode 4 begins with Matt getting to the coroner's office before Hector's family does. Moments later, Hector's niece, Angela Del Toro, arrives demanding to see her uncle. She tells Matt that the police killed her uncle in retaliation for the trial, and Matt tells her to have faith that the killer will be found. There is clearly someone out there who is idolizing the Punisher. That same night, Daniel Blake and Bibi are having a good night filled with drinks. Daniel dips since he's got work early the next day, so he leaves Bibi to enjoy the rest of the night. The next day, Fisk and Vanessa are still in therapy, and with each day, they become more and more vulnerable with each other. Glenn asks them if they're here to dissolve a marriage or preserve one. She tells them to think about it. The next day, Matt takes up the case of a petty thief named Leroy, and as he's leaving, he bumps into Powell. They have a brief confrontation, and Matt senses his heartbeat is fast. So he's clearly lying about the Hector Ayala case. Real sus. Meanwhile, Fisk goes to the port and talks about his new project. Total transformation of the old place into something good and useful. Sheila tells him all about the process, and he says they need to start now. Later that day, Fisk is on his mayoral duties across the city from attending school presentations to Heritage Day celebrations. He's then shown the headlines calling him Mayor Garbage, which Daniel accidentally leaked when he was partying with Bibi. Fisk lashes out at his team, frustrated. Daniel apologizes for leaking the information, and Fisk warns him to never do such a thing ever again. That night, Matt goes to the scene of Hector's shooting. He finds a bullet casing with a skull symbol. Someone who is a big fan of the Punisher killed Hector for winning in court. Matt takes the casing to Frank Castle, who's hiding in a dungeon somewhere. He's looking all roughed up and unkempt. Frank tells Matt that Foggy's death is eating him apart, the same way the death of Frank's family was eating him apart, and he wants to make things right. Meanwhile, Fisk and Vanessa are having dinner that night, and Fisk tells her stories about how his father shaped him to the man that he is. Vanessa, on the other hand, tells Fisk that she has changed while Fisk was away. Fisk agrees and says Vanessa has become more extraordinary. On the other side of town, Matt heads home and starts talking to Glenn about the feelings of futility, the cases where the system eats up the people it's supposed to protect. Glenn comforts him and they sleep together. Later that night, Matt wakes up and goes to the closet where he keeps his suits and goes to practice with the billy club on the rooftop. At the same time, Fisk is having dinner while watching Adam, who's locked away in a private dungeon. Fisk is not one to forgive.
I was told forgiveness. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Down in the city sewers, a masked bloody figure is drawing blood from a screaming young man on a table. Some real creepy stuff is going on right now. Episode 5 starts off during St. Patrick's Day and people are celebrating. Matt goes to New York Mutual Bank to apply for a business loan so the firm can expand. The loan officer, Yusuf Khan, tells him that their law firm does not generate enough profit to qualify for a loan. In short, they are dead broke. Matt thanks him and walks out. That's too bad. As Matt is walking out into the street, the bank gets robbed by a bunch of gun-wielding men. He hears the screaming and goes in deliberately and gets taken hostage.
Another step and it'll be your last. Can someone lock the door, please?
A crew working for a man named Luca, one of the 5 families' members, locks down the entire building. The 5 families are a group of 5 organized crime families in the city. Shortly afterwards, the NYPD arrives and surrounds the building. Back in the bank, the robbers ask Yusuf if he knows how to open the vault, and he says yes. Actually, well, he doesn't. The lead robber, Devlin, negotiates with the officer in command, Angie Kim, and they release 2 hostages. They offer to release Matt and one of the women, but he insists on staying. He gives his chance to the woman's husband, and they both go. Back in the vault, Yusuf is stalling one of the robbers as Matt pretends he's going to the bathroom. Matt knocks out the robber escorting him and arrives just in time to knock out the robber with Yusuf. Matt then uses his enhanced hearing to crack the vault combination and tells Yusuf that they need to come back with something or it's over for them and the rest of the hostages. Meanwhile, Angie tells Devlin that the transport he demanded is delayed and she needs another hour. Devlin tells her to tell a joke, and he will release 3 more hostages. She tells him a joke, and it works. He gives them 10 minutes before he shoots the first hostage. Matt is hearing all this while in the vault. Yusuf proceeds to open one of the vault boxes and takes out a diamond. He goes back to the lobby and tells the robbers to let the hostages go, and he'll give them the diamond. Moments later, the SWAT team busts in and rescues the hostages, and the other robbers get arrested, and Matt knocks one of them out. Matt then senses that Devlin disguised himself as a cop and walked out. Turns out he had an accomplice posing as a hostage. He gave her the diamond and she walked out. Outside the bank, Matt goes after Devlin and beats him up. The female accomplice opens the diamond bag and finds candy inside. Matt had swapped it during the handoff. Sneaky fella. Days later, Matt goes back to the bank to check on Yusuf, and as he leaves, he takes one candy, and Yusuf notices something on the candy bowl. Matt had placed the diamond there. We start the next episode with firefighters removing murals off New York City's walls. Meanwhile, Matt is praying while holding a photo of Foggy. Back at the mayor's office, Fisk meets up with Luca, and you can tell by the look of things that they don't like each other. At the mayor's office, Fisk is dealing with a serial killer. A man the city has named Muse has been murdering people and painting murals with their blood across the city. At the office, Angela Del Toro comes to see Matt and tells him that before Hector died, he had been investigating kidnappings across the city. She wants to help, but Matt tells her to let the authorities handle it. She tells him she doesn't care and walks out. Meanwhile, Fisk is having a meeting with the security personnel regarding the Muse issue. Gallo wants the public to be warned about him, but Fisk says no. Warning the public will make Muse go underground. They need to stay quiet and deal with it. Later that night, a group of young ladies sees Muse and tries to take a picture with him. Boy, oh boy, is he ugly.
Hey, are you Muse?
The same night, Fisk goes home and tells Vanessa about the disrespectful encounter with Luca. Afterwards, Fisk goes to a dinner, and the people there make it clear they're in charge, not him. Back at the office, Cherry updates Matt about the Muse issue and how he's painting murals with blood. Cherry tells Matt to let the police handle it, but we all know how that's gonna go. At the mayor's office, Fisk is shown photos of 2 dead girls. Yep, the ones who wanted a selfie with Muse. They became the Muse themselves. Fisk uses this as justification to launch the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. These are hand-picked officers specifically chosen to carry out Fisk's agenda. Also, they won't have body cameras. He later meets up with the team and gives them a powerful motivation speech. Connor Powell and Cole North are part of the task force as well. These are not good men at all. Meanwhile, Angela is in the tunnels lurking around. She's caught by Muse, who takes her to the hideout, ready to draw out her blood. Matt puts his suit back on and goes to find Muse. Back at Fisk's house, Fisk goes down to the prison dungeon and gives Adam an axe to defend himself with. At the same time, Matt locates Muse and they fight. Adam also fights with Fisk. Matt beats up Muse while Fisk is beating the hell out of Adam. Matt rushes and resuscitates Angela while Fisk sits next to the body of Adam. Poetic. Matt looks back to find Muse gone. In the following episode, Fisk receives the news that Daredevil is back, and he's not happy about it. Meanwhile, Glenn has noticed Matt's wounds. She asks him if he's putting himself in danger as a form of self-harm. Glenn decides to give him free therapy. The perks of dating a therapist. Matt goes back to the office and tells Cherry he's going after the Muse again. This time, Cherry tells Matt that he's on his own. Fisk is visibly frustrated by the return of Daredevil. Fisk's right-hand man, named Buck Cashman, tells him to use his resources as the mayor to put an end to him once and for all. Meanwhile, Matt goes to visit Angela in the hospital and asks her questions about Muse. She mentions to him that Muse has been drawing the faces of people he intends to target in his lair. That's enough information to get Matt started. Meanwhile, Glenn is having a therapy session with a patient named Sebastian Cooper, who has been getting increasingly concerning. He tells her about his art, about being finally seen, about his parents never understanding him, and so on and so forth. Back at the office, Fisk is discussing the same guy Glenn is talking to. Glenn watches Sebastian get a nosebleed and uses the blood to draw a picture. Glenn realizes that Sebastian is indeed Muse. He's been her patient all this time. Sebastian knocks Glenn out before she reaches the door. Back in the sewers, Matt sneaks into Muse's lair and feels the drawings on the table. He feels one sketch in particular and realizes it matches Glenn's face. He senses someone coming and knocks him out. Turns out it was Powell. Powell wakes up and phones Fisk, telling him about the Daredevil. Fisk orders him to make sure that they get Muse before Daredevil does. Meanwhile, Glenn wakes up and her hands are tied up. Muse comes to her and makes the incision on her hand to draw her blood out. Glenn lashes out at Muse, calling him a coward who hides behind a mask. Bad idea. This pisses him off, and he throws Glenn to the floor. Matt comes through the window and beats him up. Their fight is ugly and brutal. Glenn reaches for a gun and shoots Muse dead. She then falls due to excessive blood loss. Muse is finally dead. After the chaos, Fisk takes the credit for Muse's death publicly, attributing it to the AVTF. Good optics right there. Fisk's image is being positively viewed by the public. Later that night, Fisk is having dinner in a restaurant alone when Luca enters angrily. He draws out a gun, and before he even shoots, Buck shoots him dead. Cold. Episode 8 starts with Poindexter being moved from solitary confinement to the general population. All the other prisoners are at the entrance, staring at him like vultures to a carcass. The next day, Fisk takes Vanessa to the dungeon to see Adam. He's still alive, just as he had promised her. He tells her the choice is hers, and she can decide Adam's fate. Vanessa takes the gun and shoots Adam dead, and the Fisks reconcile. A match made in heaven. Back at the office, Kirsten tells Matt about Poindexter wanting to talk to him. At the mayor's office, Fisk is in no mood for any negative vibes today. He's in the mood to celebrate their victories. Later on, Matt meets up with Cherry at the bar and they talk about Foggy. Matt then realizes that Foggy may have been silenced and rushes outside. Matt then goes to meet with Dex, and Dex tells him that if he dies in Gen Pop, Matt will never know the truth about whether Fisk hired him to kill Foggy. He says if he wants the truth, he should represent him. Matt bangs Dex's head on the table repeatedly and calls the guards. He smiles and thanks Matt as he's being taken away. That night, Fisk is holding the Black and White Ball, a really classy party at Gracie Mansion. The city's most wealthy and powerful are present, protected with tight security. Meanwhile, Dex escapes from the prison medical bay by breaking his own tooth and using it to injure a guard. Bro! He kills the guard and the doctor using surgical scissors. He escapes by stealing a uniform and dressing as a guard. Matt finally arrives at the ball and he overhears Fisk pressuring and tormenting Duquesne, who has a secret life as the masked vigilante swordsman. Fisk is forcing him into supporting the Red Hook Project. This is a project developed by Fisk to restore and revitalize the Red Hook port for New York. Fisk clearly has leverage on him. While in the ball, Matt is all ears. He overhears Buck, one of Fisk's men, whisper that Poindexter is out. He escaped. The Fisks are not surprised. They're managing the situation as they're dancing. Matt overhears Vanessa say something specific. She was the one who arranged the hit on Foggy. She was the one running the Empire while Fisk was away. It was all Vanessa.
Did he know you had Foggy killed?
Does Heather know you're Daredevil?
Matt moves towards her and cuts in for a dance, and he tells her he knows she killed Foggy. She asks Matt if Glenn knows he's Daredevil. Fisk dances with Glenn as he tells her about secrets. Whether she has wondered why Matt has a thing for vigilantes. Poindexter is on the balcony with a rifle and he's aiming at Fisk. Matt senses the gun cocking and quickly jumps in front of the shot and takes the bullet. He falls down to the floor bleeding while Glenn and Fisk stare at him. The episode ends on such a cliffhanger. The final episode of season 1 begins with a flashback from 1 year ago. Vanessa is paying a visit to Dex in prison. She offers him a deal. The FBI corruption scandal gave him grounds for an appeal. She can make it happen. In exchange, he takes down 2 targets, Benny Cafaro and Foggy Nelson. The two are connected to a case that could expose something the Fisks don't want to be exposed. Back to the present, we see Dex on the balcony taking the shot at Fisk, and Matt jumps in front of him. Moments later, Matt wakes up at Metro General Hospital. Glenn and Kirsten are with him, and he tells Kirsten that Vanessa ordered the hit on Foggy. He asks for the case file connected to whatever Cafaro and Foggy were working on. And at the same time, Fisk meets up with Gallo alongside other security personnel and demands a citywide crackdown on all vigilantes, using his attack by Dex as justification. Fisk doesn't care about any founding principles. He orders the whole city sealed. Afterwards, he tells Buck to silently finish Matt off. A dead hero is better than a live vigilante. Buck goes to the hospital, but Matt is long gone. Later that night, Matt goes into his apartment and finds Frank Castle there. He tells Matt that someone asked him to keep an eye on him. He doesn't say who. Moments later, the AVTF raid Matt's apartment. Matt, already in his suit, battles his way out alongside Frank Castle. Frank kills most of the officers there, something which Matt doesn't really approve of. Cole North survives the ordeal, and Matt tells him he knows he was the one who killed Hector. He beats him unconscious. Matt senses a grenade being launched and jumps with Frank outside. The blast luckily doesn't hurt them. They get up, and just as they're walking, Karen pulls up next to them and tells them to get in the car. At the hospital, Karen patches Matt up, and she says she asked Frank to help him out after hearing Dex escaped from prison. She still cares about him. Karen and Matt then go through Foggy's old files. They find the document Foggy was about to file on. Red Hook Port has a designation of a free port, exempt from the jurisdiction of New York City and the United States. If Fisk controls the Red Hook, they just don't own property. They own a piece of sovereign territory where American law does not reach. Their crimes basically become legal inside its boundaries. Foggy was killed because he found this out. In New York streets, chaos is everywhere. People are rioting, and there is violence on every corner. Frank goes to Red Hook Port and fights through the AVTF. They eventually overwhelm him and pin him down. Meanwhile, Fisk listens to the recording of Gallo telling Sheila about Fisk, thinking he's above the law, and he plans on dealing with Fisk lawfully. Nothing happens without Fisk knowing. Back at the port, Powell and the AVTF take Frank captive, and Powell tells them they idolize him. Basically, they look up to him. Frank is confused and calls them a bunch of clowns. On the other side, Fisk beats Gallo to death and busts his head open, with his bare hands no less. That's cold, man! The AVTF watch this and are scared to even question him. On the other side of town, Karen and Matt arrive at Red Hook Port. Matt says they need an army if they're to defeat Fisk. In the morning, power is restored back to New York City. Fisk offers Glenn the position of Commissioner of Mental Health, and she accepts. Afterwards, Fisk enacts the Safer Streets Initiative, just a fancy word for martial law. He criminalizes any vigilante activities and enforces a curfew that begins at 8 p.m. Later that night, Karen and Matt are talking at Josie's bar. Moments later, Matt comes out to the bar area wearing the full Daredevil suit for everyone to see. In Fisk's dungeon, Duquesne and others are in chains. The Punisher is there too, which Vanessa finds useful as leverage. Fisk is basically in control of everything in the city. He is now unstoppable. Season 1 ends with a shot of Daredevil inside Josie's looking outside New York City. We start off the first episode of Season 2 at Red Hook Port. The Northern Star is a Cypriot ship that is carrying weapons into the port under the cover of a commercial shipment. I'm talking military-grade weapons, the kind of weapons whose source just look questionable. Daredevil boards it alone at night and tears through the crew with some good old butt-kicking. The captain of the ship spots him and does what he is told to do in case Daredevil shows up. He sinks the entire ship. The Northern Star goes down with all its contents into the bottom of the harbor, Titanic style. After the sinking incident, we catch up with Matt and Karen, who are living at Josie's bar. Literally, they sleep there, plan there, regroup there, and operate there as well. They've decided that they need to find the ship's captain and first mate. Later that night, Fisk arrives at the scene, standing on the edge of the pier where the wreckage has blocked the entire port entrance. Nothing can dock until it's cleared. Fisk calls it a terrorist attack orchestrated by vigilantes. He orders Buck to find the captain and first mate. Back at Fisk's office, a man named Mr. Charles walks in on Fisk's meeting. He is CIA. Whatever Fisk has been building in Red Hook, it has Washington's fingerprints on it. Meanwhile, Glenn is having a therapy session with Duquesne, who's detained under the Safer Streets Initiative. Back at the office, Kirsten is busting her butt off running the firm without Matt. She's taking every case she can find involving the people who have disappeared at the hands of AVTF. She knows Matt is out there, but Cherry can't tell her where. Meanwhile, Powell finds the captain of the Northern Star at a restaurant owned by a woman named Ariana, who has been running a quiet operation to get people out of New York. Powell takes the captain and arrests him. Matt later comes to the restaurant and gets some information regarding the captain. The captain, a man named Aquilo, is being tortured by Powell regarding the sinking of the ship. He says he only did what he was told to do, and he sank the ship because he was told to. Buck comes along and takes over from Powell. He then shoots Aquilo in the head. Afterward, the Fisks meet with Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles makes it clear to them that the CIA is unhappy with the Northern Star situation, and the men who helped offload the cargo need to be permanently removed as witnesses. Mr. Charles offers to handle it, providing nothing leads back to either of them. Meanwhile, Glenn keeps seeing scary hallucinations of Muse everywhere. Something is definitely wrong with her. Later that night, Cherry is ambushed by the AVTF and beaten up. They want to know where the rest of the ship's sailors are. Cherry mocks them, and the AVTF agents punch Cherry really hard. Then Matt swoops in and beats up the officers. Then he frees Cherry. He gets distracted by Cherry's rapid heartbeat, recalling Foggy's heartbeat the day he died. The officers pin Matt down and remove his mask.
Holy shit.
They're shocked to find out that Matt is Daredevil. In a matter of seconds, someone shoots all those officers dead. A knife lands on the floor next to Matt with the words, "You're welcome," written on it. The second episode begins with the sirens wailing from a distance as Cherry is taken to the hospital in critical condition. Daredevil watches from a distance while all this is happening. Meanwhile, at the church, Dex says he wants absolution since he betrayed people he loves. Meanwhile, Fisk is boxing with his trainer when Buck comes and tells him that his AVTF agent was killed by Daredevil and got away. This angers him, and he hits his boxing trainer so hard that he breaks the window. Back at the mayor's office, Buck tells Fisk that revealing to the public that Daredevil is Matt Murdock is a smart move. However, Fisk refuses. He explains why with characteristic precision. He says that a blind lawyer who saved the mayor's life will make quite a story compared to Matt being revealed as Daredevil. So Fisk goes on television and declares Matt Murdock a hero, a vulnerable man who saved the mayor and now needs to be found and brought home safely. Still at the mayor's office, there is a YouTube channel called City Without Fear that makes satirical videos of Fisk exposing AVTF brutality and organized resistance. Fisk is frustrated and has people look for the source of the leaks. He sits down with Daniel Blake, who is really scared because he fears the source might trace back to him. Fisk warns him about the consequences of betrayal. Meanwhile, Vanessa is having a talk with Buck about containing Poindexter. Elsewhere, Matt and Karen watch the weapons being offloaded from the ship. During daytime, Red Hook has workers unloading crates of diapers. Real clever. A classic misdirection. At night, the AVTF handles the real cargo. Matt says that they have to get inside before everything disappears. Karen says it's suicidal, but Matt being Matt does not fear anything. Across New York, the AVTF is causing havoc in neighborhoods. They're arresting people as they see fit. Any slight mistake and you're arrested, and if things keep going like this, civil unrest is inevitable. Across town, Vanessa hosts a charity dinner at Gracie Mansion. She invites Glenn, who has been drifting toward the Fisk orbit after separation from Matt. Vanessa is all warm and deliberate with Glenn in a way that is clearly a strategic niceness. Vanessa gets suddenly tense and looks out the window. Glenn tells her that it's just a random cold feeling. Nothing big, but in a real sense, Poindexter, aka Bullseye, is watching them from a distance. I wonder how Vanessa sensed him. Weird. Back at the law firm office, Angela goes to Kirsten and tells her that the AVTF arrested her aunt. She looks at the white tiger suit and imagines her uncle wearing it. Meanwhile, Daniel and BB meet up for dinner. Daniel warns her that anything leaked that leads to them will put them in serious trouble. After all, Fisk is not someone to be joked with. Afterwards, we see a recording of someone wearing a Fisk mask, making satirical videos targeting Fisk. The recording stops and the person seen on the video removes the mask. Turns out it was BB all along. Back at Josie's, the AVTF raids the premises in full force. Matt, in full Daredevil suit, fights them off. He's worried about Karen, but he doesn't know that she can actually handle herself. She reunites with Matt and takes him to one of the rooms. Turns out she managed to take one of the AVTF soldiers and tie him down. Karen is surprisingly a badass. Episode 3 begins with Matt asking Karen what she thinks she's doing by holding an officer captive. We see a brief flashback of Karen beating up the captured officer. Matt interrogates him, and his name is Alan Saunders. Alan gives them all the information they need. He also gives them a key card that can access the AVTF base at Red Hook Port. Matt knocks him out and takes him away. Meanwhile, Glenn is still having nightmares about Muse. She's not over the horrific encounter with him. Next up, Kirsten is representing Duquesne at his vigilante trial. The trial is in 2 weeks, and she knows that it'll be one challenging trial since Fisk is totally against anyone who means terms of vigilante. She visits Duquesne in custody and is led there blindfolded so she couldn't map out the facility. He tells her that Fisk tried to extort him by using his identity as the swordsman. Fisk just wants to confiscate his assets legally. That greedy bastard. Karen says that she'll defend him properly. Back at the mayor's office, Governor Marge McCaffrey and Lieutenant Governor Gomez show up to confront Fisk about the charter of the Red Hook port, which Karen anonymously sent them. McCaffrey says that the CIA is not a shield from state oversight. The governor tells Fisk that she overlooked all his other initiatives and enactments, but having suspicious cargo in the East River is not something she can overlook. Fisk pretends to not know anything about suspicious, but the governor is not a fool. She knows and simply gets up and walks away. Afterwards, Buck goes to meet Daniel and tells him to stay on track about who is leaking to the sarcastic channel that mocks Fisk with information regarding his plans and announcements before Fisk officially makes them. Daniel says he's doing his best to find the leak, and Buck insists that the person will be punished when caught. Moments later, we see new footage of the sarcastic channel doing what it does best, mocking Fisk. The next morning, Duquesne's trial begins, but the way justice is being dispensed, it's pretty obvious the scales are against him. Hochberg uses Glenn's psychological report to liken him to a serial killer. Every objection Kirsten raises is overruled. Literally anything she says is being overruled. There's no way she's winning this case. The whole of New York follows the proceedings keenly. Duquesne is finally given a verdict and he is found guilty on all counts. Fisk, who is following the proceedings, rejoices that his laws are finally being used as he intended. Meanwhile, Kirsten receives an anonymous message written on a piece of paper. She goes to the office and meets with Daredevil. He asks her about the location of the place where they're hiding all the vigilantes. She says she was blindfolded, but she could hear. Matt says he'll work with that. Matt makes use of his other senses to map out the location. Moments later, Matt goes in. He fights his way through the corridors, and he does not go for the weapons. Instead, he goes straight to where the people have been held and frees all of them. Matt and Duquesne fight alongside each other and beat the hell out of the guards. The best tag team of the day. Later that night, Karen finds Angela wearing the Amulet of Power, an amulet that gave her uncle Hector, aka the White Tiger, superhuman powers. Angela also shows Karen the AVTF comms she managed to steal as well. Soon after, Matt and the rest of the people manage to breach outside the facility where the vigilantes are being held captive. Angela and Karen show up next to Matt with an armored prisoner car and get everyone out safely. Powell goes ahead and reports the incident to Fisk. Fisk is clearly angry and orders the destruction of the Northern Star with the dock workers still on board. The explosion rips through the ship and it sinks. Fisk just committed mass murder. Episode 4 starts off with Poindexter waking up and making breakfast like a normal person. He walks to a diner and orders a milkshake. He then proceeds to call the AVTF hotline and says that the Punisher is at his location. The officers arrive and storm in. Dex fights them off and kills every single one of them, and he walks out of the diner, and his logo, a bullseye symbol, appears in the diner's entrance written in blood. At the hideout, a man called Christophe Sava, the first mate of the Northern Star who survived, shows up. He can place Fisk at the center of the weapons operations. He can testify. They just need to make sure he's not killed by Fisk. Fisk then meets with Mr. Charles to discuss business. Meanwhile, back at the crime scene left behind by Poindexter, Matt is disguised as an AVTF member and scans through the scene looking for hints. He finds a coin that is normally found in a church, and he heads to the church and talks to the father, who gives him more information about Dex. Matt then heads over to Dex's apartment and ambushes him. They fight it off, and Dex uses a human shield, his sweet old neighbor, to make Matt surrender. Dex says he wants to kill Fisk, but Matt objects to the idea since, well, Matt hates killing. Dex escapes and drives away on a motorcycle. Back at the hideout, Karen brings in Kirsten, and Christophe testifies on camera. He reveals it was Fisk who orchestrated the ship's landing without the need for customs, and it was full of military-grade weapons. Meanwhile, Fisk is preparing for a boxing match at Fogwell's gym. It's a fundraiser for the New York Born Again Revitalization Project, a project developed by Fisk to restore and revitalize New York City. He wants a public event, a crowd, and a camera. He's also using it as bait to draw out Bullseye, who he is very sure will try to kill him today. Buck thinks it's reckless, but Fisk thinks it's necessary. After cheers and applause from the crowd, the match between Fisk and Mike Mendelez is on. Fisk shows no mercy and beats his opponent up. He is performing at his fullest. Meanwhile, Buck intercepts the U.S. Marshals transporting Christophe and kills them all, including Christophe. Powell goes to Fisk and tells him that he's taking care of the issue, and he gets up and continues fighting. Just as Fisk is about to finish off his opponent, Vanessa walks in and sits at the front. For a moment, Fisk loses focus and is hit by Mendelez. He gathers himself up and hits Mendelez on his side. Fisk finishes him off and he falls bleeding. Fisk is given the championship belt and people rise up in celebration, cheering him on. Their celebration is quickly cut short by the arrival of Poindexter. Fisk Fisk immediately orders Vanessa to be taken out of the premises as the officers fight with Dex. Dex throws a glass object at Vanessa, but Fisk hits it with the boxing belt. Vanessa tries to shoot him, but slightly misses. Fisk pulls out his gun and aims at Dex. Daredevil appears and hits the gun out of Fisk's hands, and Matt drags Dex outside and Dex runs off. Meanwhile, Vanessa was hit on the head by one of those glass shards, and she falls next to Fisk, bleeding. Fisk stands next to her as he calls out for an ambulance. Fisk's worst nightmare just became reality. Episode 5 starts with Fisk rushing Vanessa to the hospital. He talks to Powell and tells him to find Daredevil and Bullseye alive. Meanwhile, Matt takes Dex down the tunnels. He's wounded and in need of medical attention. Vanessa's shot is looking pretty fatal right now. Back at the hospital, Fisk talks to Dr. Arash Maradi, who promises Fisk that he will do whatever he can to make sure Vanessa survives. While in the hospital, Vanessa is having dreams of when she was a young art collector. At the same time, Matt takes Dex through the tunnels, and he tells Matt that killing Vanessa settles the score and that he's ready for judgment. He mentions Foggy, and Matt chokes him, telling him to never mention his name again. Afterwards, we see a flashback of a young Matt and Foggy interning at Landman and Zach law firm. There, they're representing a man named Lionel McCoy, who refuses to take a plea deal. McCoy tells him that the people he works for wanted him dead in prison, so he doesn't want to put himself in such a situation. Here we see Matt and Foggy before their firm, just two men trying to do the right thing inside a corrupt system. Back to the present, Fisk is watching outside the operating room as the doctors do their work. Back into the tunnels, Matt is still taking Dex to get some medical help. Back to the flashback. Yeah, I know, we're going back and forth in time. Young Matt and Foggy are looking at search warrant files. Foggy discovers that the search warrant was filed incorrectly and that they have a chance of getting McCoy's charges dropped. Back to the present, Vanessa's surgery goes well and the doctor is optimistic that she'll recover. Vanessa is still having dreams of when she convinced the owner of the art gallery to hang the rabbit in a snowstorm at the entrance. She dreams of being with Fisk. Meanwhile, Matt and Dex head over to the church. They can be safe here for now. Back to the past, Matt and Foggy win the case and McCoy is free. Foggy gives him some money to start afresh. In the present, the AVTF raids the church in search of two vigilantes. Meanwhile, Daniel Blake is being taken on a long ride with Buck. Daniel is in deep trouble and he knows it. He tries to talk himself out of it, but Buck is just calm and composed. In a brief flashback, Buck comes for McCoy, who is already gone. Presently, he tells Daniel to help him get rid of a body. Daniel is so nervous, thinking he's going to be killed. Meanwhile, Matt carries Dex to their hideout and meets Karen training. Karen is totally not with this, and Matt asks her to help carry him. Back at the hospital, Vanessa finally wakes up and Fisk is more than glad. Vanessa orders pineapple juice and Fisk orders it to be brought to her. She then asks him to tell her a story of how they met. We enter a flashback of young Fisk in the art gallery. His attention is caught by a woman examining the white painting. Back to the present, Vanessa tells Fisk that it wasn't luck that brought them together.
No, not luck. It was the grand design.
The grand design. Wow. As they keep talking and laughing, Vanessa's condition worsens. Fisk quickly shouts for the doctors, but it's too late. Vanessa dies next to him, and we have sad flashback moments between the past and the present. Vanessa is gone. The next episode begins with Fisk at the hospital looking at Vanessa's body. Dr. Maradi comes to console him and offers him a hug. Fisk hugs him and crushes him to death. Buck cleans up the body. Fisk is now a man with nothing left to protect. He has nothing to lose. Afterwards, Vanessa's funeral happens, and Fisk puts a red rose on her white coffin. On the other side of town, operations go on as planned as the AVTF continue loading Mr. Charles's shipment of weapons. The next morning, a badass private investigator named Jessica Jones is at home with her daughter Danielle when armed operatives surround them. She beats them up. She goes inside to find her daughter playing with a hand grenade. She defuses it just in time. Meanwhile, Karen watches over Dex, and she straight up says that their war won't end until one of them, Fisk or Matt, dies. Matt says vigilante justice is not justice, because he doesn't support killing. Back at the mayor's office, Fisk is still in mourning. Mr. Charles calls him, and he doesn't utter a single word. He cuts the call and seems to be in deep contemplation. Back outside, people are putting flowers around the mayor's house in honor of Vanessa. In another part of town, Matt and Jones ambush the AVTF storage facility where the CIA weapons have been moved. They beat the officers up, and every weapon inside is destroyed. Sometime later, Buck visits Glenn at Gracie Mansion, and their interaction is really weird. He gets her to talk about Muse choking her, and then asks her to demonstrate. Glenn chokes Beck, and this makes Glenn kind of feel better. I'm telling you, it's really weird. Back outside, Daniel meets up with BB and tells her that Fisk is not running for re-election after the death of Vanessa. Daniel tells BB to not tell anyone about it, but, well, we all know how that will go. At the hideout, Karen wakes Dex up and they have a conversation. Dex mentions Foggy, and Karen is visibly angry. She points a gun at Dex's head just as she's about to shoot. Matt appears and knocks the gun out of her hand. Karen lashes out at him and tells him that he chooses bad people over good people. Meanwhile, Blake and BB are having a birthday dinner at Blake's home. BB breaks Blake's trust and leaks the information Daniel told her not to. Outside, Karen projects the video testimonies of AVTF detainees onto the walls of City Hall. The detainees speak out on their inhuman treatment while in custody. The crowd watches the whole video, which makes them angry. The ensuing protests soon escalate. Powell kills Saunders in the parking lot and blames it on the vigilantes. The AVTF is now using force on the crowd. Moments later, Matt goes to Fisk's hideout and he finds him alone, sitting in front of his favorite painting. Matt says he's sorry about Vanessa and offers a way out for both of them, and that is for Matt and Fisk to leave New York City for good and let the city heal without them. Fisk says he has nothing to lose and suddenly attacks Matt. At the same time, outside, protesters are clashing with AVTF officers. Fighting is happening inside and out. Damn. Matt mostly stays defensive while Fisk beats him up. He throws Matt on the Rabbit in a Snowstorm painting, destroying it. This triggers a whole different kind of rage in Fisk, and he beats Matt down. Matt defends himself, and when they settle down, Fisk tells Matt that he didn't win. He can neither arrest nor kill Fisk. Back outside, the protesters are being beaten up by the officers. Karen's wig falls off, and Powell recognizes her. He then points a gun at her while smiling. In the 7th episode, Karen is being held at the 15th precinct. Fisk then comes to see her personally. He tells Karen that she's a criminal and mocks the idea that she's doing all this protesting out of love for Matt, someone who Fisk hates with a passion. Karen rage baits him by responding that she really enjoys it when he's scared. Fisk is infuriated and chokes Karen through the bars. Karen's almost out of breath when Fisk removes his hands from her neck. He tells Karen that she has only one phone call and she better choose it wisely. On a rooftop, Jessica Jones confronts Mr. Charles, who tells her that Fisk is planning to kill the governor. Jones goes to tell Matt about it, and Jones can't stay since she has to take care of her daughter Danielle. So, she also says Fisk won't stop unless someone puts him down. And that someone is our dear Matt. Back at Matt's place, Matt frees Poindexter from his restraints. He sits across from him and tells him how much he hates him for all the death he's caused. But Matt needs to forgive him, and he wants Poindexter to do one thing. He then asks what it is. Meanwhile, Mahoney sneaks Karen out of her cell and takes her to meet Matt. She tells Matt that she's not running anymore and chooses to stay inside. Matt tells her that they are going to cross some lines. Karen understands what this means and hugs Matt tightly before returning to her cell. It was her idea after all. Back at the mayor's office, Fisk and Hochberg are preparing Karen's trial. The Safer Streets initiative is being used as a weapon. It was always meant to be. Convict anyone going against Fisk. At Daniel's house, he and BB are arguing. Daniel tells BB that he is really messing him up and putting him at risk by leaking critical information behind his back. Meanwhile, at the court, Karen's trial is underway. Kirsten defends Karen, who pleads not guilty. She then heads to the jury and calls to bring in her co-counsel. Guess who shows up?
Matthew Murdock for the defense, Your Honors.
Matt Murdock. He walks into the courtroom and Fisk is closely watching the live proceedings, visibly unhappy. Matt asks Powell some questions in the courtroom alongside the rest of the officers present. Back in the courtroom, the session is adjourned until tomorrow. As they head outside, Matt senses that something is being planned. While they walk in the parking lot, the AVTF ambushes the NYPD convoy that is escorting Matt and Kirsten. Matt gets shot in the leg. At the governor's residence, an assassin ambushes her from behind and begins choking her to death. Poindexter shows up and kills the assassin. Then he walks away without saying a word as police officers arrive behind him. Meanwhile, Blake goes and meets with Buck. Buck asks him where BB is. Blake throws the F word at Buck, who begins punching him badly. Wrong move, bro. At the precinct, Glenn goes in to meet Karen. Karen provokes Glenn by mentioning how Matt must have hurt her so badly that she sought help from Fisk. Glenn slaps Karen and walks out angrily while Karen smiles at her. Moments later, Buck asks Daniel where BB is. He refuses to say and Buck shoots him in the head and leaves. For a brief moment, it looks like he was hesitating, but Buck had no choice. Daniel, who is not a good person, but was trying to stop being a terrible one, dies while protecting someone else. This show is actually pretty good at killing off such characters. The final episode begins in the courtroom. Kirsten is waiting for Matt, who seems to be running late. Turns out Matt is being bandaged by Jones after getting shot in the previous episode. Afterwards, Matt arrives at the court while Glenn is on the stand. The case against Karen is built up on Glenn's psychological report, on Powell's testimony, and on Safer Streets apparatus. which was designed from the ground up to convict. After a court break, the trial resumes and Matt calls Wilson Fisk to the stand. Meanwhile, outside, a sniper positions himself strategically, looking at the courtroom. Something is about to happen. Fisk enters the courtroom and sits at the stand. Then the AVTF forces enter the courtroom shortly after and stand in a line. Back outside, Bullseye attacks the sniper and the other officers protecting him. He takes the sniper's place and aims at the courtroom. Meanwhile, at the trial, Matt goes for Fisk really hard. He asks Fisk personal and direct questions as Fisk's lawyer, Hochberg, does his best to defend his client. Matt shows the jury the evidence video of Christofi saying that it was Fisk who orchestrated the Northern Star docking in New York to deliver illegal merchandise. Still, this does not work on Fisk. He has the upper hand in this. After another break, the session resumes, and Matt goes even harder on Fisk, asking him questions until he finally crashes out. Bro made Fisk crash out. As a final bullet, Matt turns to the courtroom and reveals his deepest secret.
I am Daredevil.
The whole room is shocked. He says it out loud in front of the cameras, in front of a city that has been hunting vigilantes for years. He says it's because the testimony's credibility depends on a Daredevil witness, and he is that witness. Matt throws his walking cane across the room and catches it mid-air. He convinces them that he is indeed Daredevil. The judges listen to Matt's appeal and decide that the case against Karen is to be dismissed. She is free to go. People celebrate as Matt and Karen joyfully hug and kiss. Fisk sits still at the stand, looking defeated. For the first time, we see a defeated Fisk. He whispers to Matt that he has won nothing. He is clearly bitter. Fisk then walks out of the courtroom and meets Matt on the way out. Shots ring through the hallway and one shot hits Buck, who jumps in front of Fisk to protect him. Moments later, Fisk goes live and declares a state of emergency. He locks down the courthouse and AVTF officers seal the perimeter. Matt grabs his suit and wears it. Outside, a massive amount of protesters have surrounded the courthouse. Powell directs Cole to shoot the protesters. He refuses and knocks him out. He then proceeds to let the protesters in. Cole North has decided which side he wants to be on. The protesters storm the courthouse, chanting, "Take down Fisk." Meanwhile, Matt and Jones jump into the battle and beat the AVTF officers. On the other side, protesters are overwhelming the officers, pushing them away. This is really a revolution. Things are not looking good for Fisk. He's visibly furious, and he orders the door to be opened and begins killing the protesters. Ordinary New Yorkers who came to the courthouse in Daredevil masks because they believed in something. He beats and kills them with his bare hands, while on the other side, Daredevil is tearing through the officers. Fisk meets up with another wave of protesters storming the building. Fisk tries to convince them that he is a good person, but the protesters want to hear nothing of it. They climb up the stairs and reach Fisk. They start beating him up, but Matt swings to where Fisk is and tells the protesters to not kill him. Then he turns to Fisk and tells him that it's over. Everything is out in the public and there's nothing he can do about it. He gives Fisk a deal: accept exile from New York forever or choose to stay and face everything in court and go back to Rikers Island, where he will never see the outside again. Fisk looks at Matt and he looks at the crowd below him, and he finally accepts the deal. After everything is cooled down, Matt is incarcerated. Voluntarily, of course, for years of being a vigilante with no legal justification. He made himself legally responsible the moment he revealed his identity under oath. He willingly accepts the charges because that's what his deal with Fisk required, knowing what it would cost. Back at Jessica Jones's house, Jones reunites with Luke Cage, Danielle's father, and, well, basically Jessica's husband. These two just got a lot of issues. BB Urich is hired by Ellison at the New York Bulletin because that's where people like BB end up eventually. Glenn is in a room alone and she picks up Muse's mask and puts it on. Wilson Fisk is on a plane out of New York City. Matt goes to prison and walks towards his cell, knowing that he made New York safe and it will remain that way. And that, my friends, is the entire story of Daredevil. Hopefully you enjoyed this recap, and feel free to click a link on the screen to watch another one of the videos. Please do like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those other awesome things you people do, and I will see you next time.